Guys, what's going on tonight? How's everybody tonight?
Good, Price. How you doing?
Doing well, doing well.
Price, what's going on, brother?
Man, not a whole lot. How you doing out there?
Good, man. I'm good. Ready to Bezo.
You know, this is one thing I'm gonna say, man. I appreciate y'all keeping it 100, man. Because I see y'all here, Big Perk.
Coach Price, what's up, baby?
Yeah, not a whole lot, man. This is my real crew right here, man. Because it seemed like we had some people that just came to show love when y'all was on last week.
No, this the original crew, the foundation right here.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. So I knew last week was a little bit. We're gonna have some people that weren't gonna be completely all the way in. But this is the crew that normally comes through, man. So I appreciate the love, man.
Oh, anytime, all day long. You know what it is.
Yeah. So, well, we got a great group this week. 3 great young coaches that I think are doing a great job in this business. Brandon Chappell, who I consider a brother of mine, who's an assistant coach for my father at Lamar University. We've got another young up-and-coming guy. I won't say up-and-coming because he's getting to those ranks already. Brock Morris at UL Louisiana. And then we have Martin Bahar that is at San Diego, who has had a lot of success both on the East Coast and the West Coast. He's been at numerous institutions as well. So tonight we'll go ahead. Our first speaker will be none other than Brandon Chappell of Lamar University. And the floor is yours, B.
Already, Ron. Man, I appreciate you, man. I'm excited to be here. For you guys that don't know, man, Ryan's talking real talk, man. He's really a brother to me. We played against each other in college. We've watched each other grow and been there with each other during this business as we've grown in the business. His pops is like my pops. When his baby girl was born, I held her in her first few days, and we had the same cookout, same functions. And it's week 27, man. I'm just getting on the mic, dog. You see how he do me, man? You know what I'm saying, man? It's family, man. They say it's the ones that's the closest to you that get you, man. You know what I'm saying? I come in every Tuesday. I just been waiting my turn. Look, when y'all got the link, that's when I got the link, dog. He treated me like a real brother. Look, man, you gonna do this, and that's it. So I'm speaking on Tuesday now. So what's up, everybody, man? Just want to thank the people that are on this call. See a lot of familiar faces, a lot of brothers, a lot of people I've seen on the scene. And just appreciate y'all spending the time, not only with me and Ryan, but for Coach Martin and Coach Brock, man, 2 guys that got a lot of knowledge between both of them. So I won't be too long. I'm just going to kind of talk about my journey a little bit and a couple things that are important to me and that I kind of do with my regular day life as I kind of navigate through this business and life. So I'm going to start off. I'm from Beaumont, Texas, born and raised here. I come from a single family home where my mom and dad, they got a divorce when I was in first grade. And my brother, me and him both being young, we kind of naturally gravitated towards our mom. And at that time, we lived with her. And then when I was in 6th grade, she got remarried and moved to San Diego. And Coach Martin, it's crazy you on this call, man. I love San Diego, man. You're in a great spot. But she moved to San Diego, and at that time, she made the ultimate sacrifice. You know, we all know mama's love, and she decided that she didn't want my brother and I to be separated, and that she wanted my dad to raise my brother and I. So already right off top, you know, my mom did the ultimate sacrifice and allowed us to grow up with our dad. And, you know, we was with our dad throughout the year. And then holidays in the summers, we'll go out to San Diego. So you know how it is with Mama's Love. We're out in San Diego. We got big couches, curtains, throw pillows. We're relaxing, getting 3 meals a day, getting fed. Boom, I come back to Beaumont. You walk in our house, it's a futon, it's a domino table right over here with 4 chairs. It's a kitchen. You got paper plates, paper cups, paper towels. We eating hamburgers and hot dogs, man. Let's go. So that was kind of the vibe of my old man. Like, you know, he taught like, hey, you want it, you got to go get it. You know, this is our first time really us spending a lot of time with him because we were with our mom so much. So discipline was really a part of him, to the point of when I turned 16 years old, you know, I went to the mall, but I didn't go grab any new shoes and a hat. I went to the mall, man, and I went and got a job at Foot Action. You know, when you turn 16, that's the first, you know, legally you can whatever, get a job. So I went and got a job. My dad's like, hey, you want a haircut? You want shoes? You know, you got to go out and get it. And keep in mind, I'm working during the summer. I'm playing for a Hall of Famer head coach and Andre Boutte here at Ozan High School, or Ozan High School at the time. And he was a no-nonsense guy where he old school with it, where he didn't do tryouts. Tryouts were you coming into the summers, you getting there at 6:30 in the morning and you grind it out. You know, at the same time, when the school year comes, if he sees you on campus with earrings, you're not playing that night. And I think I got Perk on this call. I played high school ball with Perk. Perk, I'm lying. If you don't have your shirt and tie on game day, he don't care who you are. You sitting down, man. You ain't playing the first half.
No, you ain't doing that.
Nah. So that's the type of coach I grew up with also balancing having a job, you know, and just kind of balancing that out a little bit. So kind of after that, high school ball at Ozan, we did well, won a state championship, moved on. I ended up going to Lamar straight out of high school, staying home in my hometown. And while I was at Lamar, I played for 3 different head coaches. I got recruited by Mike Dean. I redshirted for him. I tore my Achilles my freshman year. And then after that, Billy Tubbs came in. I played 2 years for him. And then my senior year, I played 1 year for Steve Rockefeller. And, you know, we're all in this coaching business. We understand how it is. Going through coaches changes is tough. It took a lot of mental toughness to kind of get through 3 different coaches, 3 different styles, 3 different recruiting classes, and end up having a decent career there. And love it, you know, happy to be home now. So after college, I was able to play 5 years professionally in Germany. And that was the first time I went from one extreme to the other. And by that, I mean, you know, being here in Beaumont at Lamar, I grew up 2 miles from campus. You know, even now I drive by my old neighborhood on my way home. To the all the way extreme of going all the way across the world to Frankfurt, Germany, and did 23 years straight in Beaumont. So that was really an opportunity for me to kind of get out on my own, kind of figure things out by myself. And it was really, really a blessed opportunity. Over there is where I kind of realized, man, hey man, basketball is business. It was my last year out there, and I was playing for a team that was trying to move up it was trying to move up to the first league. I was on a Pro A team, and we lost a couple games early on. And, you know, a couple close games, whatever, it's a bottom line business. You win, did you win or did you lose? We lost a couple games early. I go into practice mid-season, and I see another guard at the other end warming up with his agent. And I'm like, oh, we got a new player? My 2 German teammates looked at me like, man, B, keep your head up, boy, it's gonna be all right. And I'm like, ooh. The next morning, I'm signing papers and getting my little settlement, and I don't even get my whole contract. Boom, I'm back at home. So going back a little bit through those years I was in Germany, my mom moved from San Diego, California to Savannah, Georgia. And in Savannah, they had a college up the street from where she lived called Armstrong State. Assistant there at the time, Evans Davis, man, one of my big dogs, he was an assistant there at the time. He's now at Alcorn State, assistant over there. E. Davis, if you're on here, what's up, my man? And I was keeping a relationship with him. I would go up there. He'll let me train with the guys, lift weights, kind of be in the office with him a little bit. And through the years, I started developing a relationship with him where it went beyond basketball. So I leave from getting cut in Germany, and I go to Atlanta, and I work for Nike basketball and did some skills training, some basketball camps. And actually, I don't know if Coach Huff on the line had a chance to work with him and all his killers over there, man. He had a big time program at St. Francis where he had Malik Beasley, Kobe Simmons, Kaiser Gates. He had boys. And he gave us the opportunity to come work those guys out and work out some youth kids. It was a good transition, kind of trying to figure out what I want to do now that I stopped playing. And Coach Davis gave me a call, like that September or that August, I forget. Was like, hey, B, I know you in Atlanta training, but my head coach just got a Division I job, and they named me the interim head coach. And I got 1 year to try to make this thing work, man. And school start next week. I got a spot for you if you want it. I don't know if you want it, but I trust you. I need somebody I can just trust. I'll teach you everything else. So boom, whatever, kind of sat on and was like, hey, worst case scenario, I can go back to Atlanta and train, can go down, be with my mom, get some experience. Come on, let's do it. So we had a 1 year there and had a decent year. No guys got any trouble. Just kept the team afloat. And at the end of the year, it was a 1 year deal from up front. And Coach Davis, a real one, man, he came to me like, B, man, been in this game. I'm going to go ahead and go for this head coach title. In order for it to really work, man, like I may have to go get somebody that got a little bit more experience. And I knew the deal right off top. And I said, yeah, coach, I got you, man. I told you I'll be here for a year. I got you, dog. And to be honest, I jumped into it. Now I'm like, man, I don't want to leave, though. Like, I like this, seeing the other side of college coaching, seeing all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, like scout reports, recruiting. I was completely green, but Coach Davis so big time, man, just showing me things, kind of showing me the ropes. But I had to end up leaving. And at that time, I didn't know what to do. Kind of reached out to the AD that was there, talked to Coach Davis, talked to some other guys. And people were saying, hey, if you want to stay at the Division I level, if you want to get into this, a good route to go is being a graduate assistant, a video coordinator, or get some kind of support staff role where you can really watch and learn and grow and really get a feel for it. So after that, did like what everybody does. You know what I mean? I got on Hoop Dirt. I'm looking. I'm just trying to watch, see what pops open. And Northern Arizona University had a graduate assistant spot. And I didn't know anybody on that staff. I didn't know anybody there. And but come to find out, Coach Jack Murphy worked for Josh Pastner. That's now at Georgia Tech. They was at Memphis together. And Coach Pastner goes back with our family with the Houston Hoops. We all played for the Hoops, and they was tight. And so that's family kind of reached out and connected a couple dots. Long story short, I ended up getting to Northern Arizona, and I had no idea what I was going to get into. I'm packing for Northern Arizona. I'm thinking I'm going to Arizona. I'm packing shorts, T-shirts, muscle shirts. I get up to Flagstaff, find out it snows 5 months out the year. So already right then, I'm like, hey, I don't know what I'm going to get into, but I'm going to put my head down, work hard, man, and just kind of have faith and go into it. So even while I was there, man, I walked into the perfect situation where they had a really good team coming back that was top heavy. Coach West, that's on this line. Coach West, what's up? He's the head coach at Western Oregon. Big time guy. Matt Dunn, who helped bring me in. He's now at IUPUI. Coach Dunn, what up? Coach Kruger was there, went to Oklahoma, and now he's at UNLV. So we had a strong staff. And Coach Murphy, who's the head coach, he's now the associate head at Arizona. So we was really there getting after it, man. And we had a great year, set the season a record for school wins, came up short from winning the title and going to the tournament, but went to the CIT tournament, man. We had a great run there, made it all the way to the finals. Unbelievable opportunity, man. Loved every part about it. Unfortunately, the following year was a little different. Lost a lot of games, had some young guys, but still we in there working and growing. And so now I'm at the end of my 2 years as a GA, and I'm like, Lamar at the time ended up having an opening on the staff. Backing up a little bit, when I was first leaving Armstrong, I reached out to Coach Price, like, hey, Coach, I'm interested in the job, told me I needed some more experience, but to stay on his radar. So I kept in touch with him during my 2 years at Northern Arizona. And then at Northern Arizona, Kevin Kruger ended up going with his dad to Oklahoma. So now 2 spots open as I'm at the tail end of being a GA. And so you know how it is. You start connecting dots. I'm like, hey, I got a good position with Coach Price at Lamar. I've been keeping in touch with him. And here at Northern Arizona, position open up. I can just walk right in and it'd be natural. You know, I'm talking to one of my best friends, like, you know, man, I got Lamar on this side, you know, Northern Arizona right here. I'm gonna probably get one of them. Shoot, I'm gonna probably get both of them, man. I'm probably gonna be able to pick which one I go to. You know, whoever got the most money. You know, I don't know. I'm all the way humble, and that situation ain't work out like that. Coach Price ended up hiring Justin Bailey, who's one of my best friends in the business, man. He had recruiting experience, was at Fort Smith, did his job, was more prepared, and Coach Price went in that direction for him and his family, rightfully so. And then at Northern Arizona, ended up getting in a dogfight as far as applying for the job with another guy, Coach Murphy Nuke. He ended up going that direction. So that go for me thinking I had a job to kind of striking out and really left with a decision like, hey, I got to look myself in the mirror and kind of figure out what I can do to make myself better and shake back off of this. So Coach West was big for me there, and people that I talked to a lot and kind of helped me stay focused and being able to shake back. And Kevin Kruger brought me out with him. He just got the job at Oklahoma, allowed me to go out there and stay with him for a couple months. This is May, June, and July, and the beginning of July. And I was able to be around Coach Crutchfield, Coach Hartman, those guys at Oklahoma, Coach Kruger. And it was good therapy for me, but still I didn't have a job. And then Coach Price gives me a call and says, hey, B, man, you know you're on my radar. Fort Smith, Justin Bailey, who I just hired, he has his spot open. I think it'll be a good opportunity for you. And me, in my mindset and not really knowing the business, I kind of pick up the phone like, yeah, Coach, I understand. I appreciate you. I thank you, but I'm trying to stay Division I. You know, I don't know if that's the right move for me, but I appreciate you. And you know, didn't literally say it in those words, but that's, you know, kind of how I'm thinking. And I got to give my man Brian Burton a lot of credit. B Bird, I don't know if he on the call, but he called me up and said, hey, B, you know, I know you wanted Lamar. I know you wanted NAU, but man, this is a real good opportunity at Fort Smith, man. Get a chance to get on the road. You got recruit ties in Texas, man. You really just hit the ground running and wait for your opportunity. And, you know, so that started resonating in my ear. And I was with those guys in Oklahoma. They was giving me great advice. And I believe in divine order. I have strong Fort Smith was 2 hours up the road from Norman, Oklahoma. And if I would have been in Houston or Atlanta, I don't know if I would have drove down. Excuse me. I don't know if I would have drove down to see it. So I ended up going down there and was completely blown away. Coach Newman had big time energy. The facilities was great. Dorms, apartments, everything was high level. And I was like, wow, like I could see myself being here. And long story short, I ended up taking the job. So now I'm back to being a Division II assistant at a real good situation. And he kind of matched up me and Zane Gibson, who's now the head coach at Western New Mexico, and made us compete within that coaching locker room as far as everything, while still keeping, you know, the guys ready for battle every day. And guys on here that coached at the D3 level or the D2, NAIA, JUCO, whatever, you understand at that level, you are the equipment manager. You are the strength and conditioning coach. You are the academic coach. You're touching all these different things. And I thought that really prepared me. I had no idea how much I needed that. And I got to give Coach Newman a lot of props, man. He really pushed us. I'll tell you a quick story. He called me in the office about mid-October, right when I got there, and was like, B, close my door. He said, hey, man, Zane Gibson is kicking your ass right now. I'm like, Coach, what you talking about? He said he already got 2 commits, and you haven't brought anybody in. And I'm like, Coach, man, well, you know, man, I'm keeping it hot. You know, I'm working it. Nah, man, you ain't getting it done right now. Do you want to keep coaching players that aren't yours? Or better yet, do you want to coach all the Zane guys? You better hit this ground running and get after it and be aggressive. And long story short, man, it was that type of energy that lit a fire, and we ended up having a great year. We won the conference tournament. We went to the NCAA tournament, did a great job, and we ended up signing one of the top Division I transfers in the country. And So now I'm totally lost within UAFS at Fort Smith. And I really learned like your job that you have right now is truly your best job. You know, you lose yourself within that job, you dive into it, you handle your business with pure intentions, you know, the right things are going to happen around you. So now it's September and we have a good team, good recruits coming back. We're excited, great momentum. And Coach Price calls me September and say, hey, B, Brian Burton just left and went to Fresno State. Man, I want to offer you a job, bring you in here, man. And I'm like, wow, you know, that's amazing. But at the same time, I'm fully invested in Fort Smith. I'm thinking we're talking about winning a national championship. You know, Coach Newman brought me back in his office and was like, hey, B, you know, you got to go. And I'm like, Coach, man, but, you know, and I knew the right thing to do, but it's like, Coach, we're about to win a national championship. We're working over here. Let's finish what we started. He's like, nah, man, you got to go. I know those guys. It's the right opportunity. It's home. I'll see you later. So I knew the right thing, but that was that confidence that kind of helped me out. So boom, end up taking the job here at Lamar. And man, when I say, listen, Coach Price, I know you guys know him. Ryan, he's obviously your dad. People that come across him, man, but I wish you guys really had the opportunity to work for him, man. He is just unbelievable. The trust he has for you. He's smart. He's strategic. He doesn't sugarcoat. He has a great feel for the room, and being with him these last 3 years has allowed me to grow in areas I didn't even know I was able to grow. And just learning every single day. It can be times where I walk in the office with Coach Price, you know, obviously talking about recruits, game planning, whatever the case may be. And he'll slow it down and just talk about real life and how it correlates to basketball and dropping gems every day. A lot of times I go in there, I don't say anything, I just listen. And so now being here, it coming full circle, man, it's just been unbelievable. You know, being back home, people are like, yeah, B, you played at Lamar, you back home, man? Like that was automatic, they brought you in. I'm like, nah, I wish it was automatic. It took, you know, Coach Price turned me down 2 times before I got that call. And, you know, it's certain steps you got to do, but I'm going to kind of sum it up by just saying, you know, we all know how this business works. It's all about relationships and hard work. As cliche as it sounds, Coach Price told me years ago, hey, man, stay in touch with me, man. You're on my radar. Or, you know, even the relationship I have with guys I work with, Justin Bailey, Coach West, you know, Edis Davis, other guys like that, and just staying in the mix and really valuing those relationships you have. At the same time, you know, we're in this business of coaching. You know, we're coaching these guys every single day, but, you know, we're coaching ourselves at the same time. How can I tell a guy to keep working hard? I know you're not playing as much as you think you need to now, but keep working. It's going to pay off at the end. If I'm not doing it, if we're not doing it as coaches ourselves, as far as staying the course, planting seeds. You know, the seeds you plant today may not, you know, blossom right now when you want it or when you expect it to, but it's definitely going to blossom when you need it. So I'm all about business with pure intentions. And, you know, that's really it. That's my story, how I kind of got here and kind of what I stand for and everything I did. So I hope I ain't bore you guys. I don't know if my story is any different from people that have it or somebody took one thing from it. But Ryan, again, though, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of share my story and kick this thing off for you tonight.
And I appreciate you, B. We'll go ahead and open up the floor for questions for B.
I guess I'll go ahead and start it off. What up, Bezo? Before I ask my question, big dog, I just want to say, he's right. Me and B, one of my best friends in the business. It's funny how it kind of happened. I'm born and raised in Fort Smith. So I got the job at Lamar where he's born and raised in Beaumont. So we called each other probably once or twice a week just to learn about the city, about the town, about the people around there. And that's how we kind of developed our relationship, and it's been tight ever since. But B did a great job. But my question for you is, the year I worked with you, man, I think one of the best things you do is develop relationships with the players on the team. How do you go about doing that? Do you go over to the student union, eat lunch with them? Is it making sure they come to your office every day? What's your secret? What's the best thing, the process in developing those relationships? Yeah,
man, I appreciate you, Jay. That's a good question, man. Honestly, it's it's just being completely honest with them all the time, even when they don't want to hear it. You know how it is where it's funny how with me, just personally, when I was at Armstrong with Coach Davis, you know, that was my first year coming from a player to a coach. And my main mindset was I want to be the coach that either I never had or the coach that I always wanted. So a lot of times at Armstrong was kind of babying some relationships to remain cool. You know what I mean? And Jay, you know, me and you talk about it. It's kind of with the mindset like, hey, look, I got friends. I have brothers and I have friends. You know, you guys are going to become family because we're going to develop a relationship. You're going to respect me. I'm going to respect you. And that's where the love is going to grow. It ain't going to grow from me being your friend. So moving forward after Armstrong, just kind of focusing on that, man. And it's like you said, man, spending extra time with them, picking them up when it's raining and you know it's raining. Just call one and say, hey, man, I know it's raining. I got you today. And then, you know, just spending that time. It's nothing like that time. Anything else, when we recruit everything, it's just getting that quality time where they know, regardless of basketball, you know what, man, you got my back. So it's kind of the meat and potatoes of it.
Appreciate that, big dog.
No doubt, bro.
Mr. Chappell, E. Davis, how you doing, my man?
My big dog, what's up?
Man, I am great, man. I am great. I remember, and I'm gonna share this story. I hope you don't mind. When I got the job at Armstrong, again, it was 2 days before school started. Coach had left, and I had got wind that I would be the head coach. So, you know, not knowing anyone that would take, you know, be my assistant for what they were paying. I called Brandon in Atlanta, like he said, and he was working at Lee Miller. And I basically told him, man, I just need somebody I can trust. You know what I'm saying? I know you don't have experience. You played the position, you played pro, you have enough life experience, enough game experience, but more importantly, you know, I trust you. And how did I get to trust him? Because we used to run together a little bit, you know, when he came to visit his mom in Savannah. So I showed him around. I think I showed a couple of guys around that came down there to see me. But one thing he did was he was always truthful, honest, hardworking. He was a sponge. He always tried to listen and apply it, even when he didn't know where to go. But one thing I want to ask you is something that you had asked me, because he tried to do such a good job for me, and he did. But you hit me one night, Brandon, and you said, Coach, and I knew you was in the office late. I knew you wanted to do well. That's how you got to be a professional. You said, Coach, how do you balance it? He said, man, Coach, how do you balance it? And, you know, and I gave some advice, but I want to ask you, now that you got some, you know, a little bit more experience under your belt, what do you do to balance it?
What do I do to balance it, or how do I balance it?
How do you balance it?
I got you. Well, I appreciate you, man. And you already know, I giving you my flowers, man. Evans Davis, he's the reason I'm here right now, man. He pulled me in. He seen something in me I didn't even see, man. So you already know, bro. Appreciate you. How I balance it really is simple and cliche, and I'm gonna keep saying it, but it's really through the hard work. It's easy to balance it when you already handled your business. You know what I mean? If I made those recruiting calls, if I did my scout, if I did things, you know what? I can take a step back and not have to panic and worry that I'm not taking care of business. So for me, I really try to do that. Even during these times now, a lot of faces, you know, we all on here on Ryan's deal, on Be Ready and jumping on Zooms. And it's great, it's big time. And I've loved it. But then there's also times where it's like, you know what, let me just put it down for a week and try to balance some things out. I already know I got my work in, I got my relationships. If my relationships that I establish got to be renewed every day, every week, you know what, it may not be my real relationship. And I'm cool on it. So that's where I kind of get my balance, man, through the hard work, and then I can put my feet up a little bit and just take a day or a time or whatever the case may be.
I appreciate that. We'll leave the what do you do to balance it for the Let's Grow After Dark version, Ryan. Appreciate that, B.
You already know, bro.
Brandon, I got one for you.
Yo.
So you spoke about early in your career kind of how like Coach Newman obviously had a great staff, but he kind of pushed you and Zane together. Like everybody just speaks volumes on Coach Price and how he does that with the staff. And I know you love your staff as well, but like, how does Coach Price kind of make you guys stay sharp and kind of push you and put you guys in competition amongst each other to make y'all better?
Man, he's such an OG. He's so smooth. It's really our relationship with him and the trust he has in us that hold us accountable. So nobody wants to let coach down. You know what I mean? He's real enough where shoot, he'll call you out now. You know what I mean? If it's something, but the most important thing is just the trust with him. So now we're working back in our office and it's just you late night or you driving on a recruit or whatever it is. It's like, man, I can't let Coach Price down, man. He trusted me to handle my business so much. So he almost doesn't have to call us in daily. Now, I say he's so smooth because we meet every day. I don't know how other places do it, but whether we're talking about exact practice plans or we're just eating lunch together, but we're going to sit and meet every day. And he just talks and he just drops little nuggets and things that you can kind of catch and be like, all right, let me get on top of that without him even saying anything. So it's really just the trust and the accountability, really, man. He's been in this game a long time. He's like, look, I know if you handle your business or not, and that's gonna speak for itself. So, good question though, my man. And these are all guys I work with, man. I promise, I didn't cash out none of these guys. They asking questions kind of on their own, man. I know it seems like a setup, but these are my brothers, man. I work with them, man. Love y'all boys.
Speaking of cash app, go ahead and send it that way.
See, look, I done walked myself right into that. Coach Huff, what's up, baby?
Coach B, got a question. Mark Rutledge here, man, Henderson State. How you doing?
What's going on, my boy?
Nothing much, man, nothing much. I appreciate all the information. It was great. And it's a bunch of coaches on here that's giving me great information. So I want to ask you a quick question. You've worked for a lot of great people in the business. When you get your head coaching job, what are a couple things that you're going to take from some guys that you've learned from on your path? What are you going to take?
Great question. Great question. First thing I gotta, and I appreciate you saying that, man. You know how this is. We all in it to continue to move forward and to get better. But I appreciate that, man. And I love the grind. Congratulations on what y'all doing over there at Hen State, man. Y'all did y'all thing.
I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
No doubt. No doubt. One thing first from Coach Price is the true balance of what I just kind of mentioned as far as accountability, really holding guys accountable and trusting. Me being a head coach, that's something that I'm looking to do, get ready for it, whatever down the line case may be. But I can imagine that my staff will be built around just trust. And also at the same time with the mindset of the discipline aspect. One thing about all the coaches that I've been able to be with, from Coach Davis, Coach Murphy, Coach Newman, and Coach Price, is the discipline and family aspect of it. It's a little easier to discipline when they know it's family and they know it's real and they know it's genuine and authentic. So it's easier to hold people accountable. And so those just kind of two main things right off top that I think about. I got to trust the people that I'm working with. Loyalty is key. So I can hold those guys accountable. And then just bringing that family and discipline aspect to it.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
No doubt. Good question.
Coach, I had Jordan Ingram, I'm a post-grad coach at Covenant College Prep.
What's up, Jordan?
Okay. Not much, man. I had a question. I know you from like switching from job to job, like how are ways that that you kind of prepare run a recruiting in? How do you kind of, like you were saying, like at the one spot, like the coach was like, look, you got to get players, man. You got to get players. Like he kicking you behind. So like what are ways that, you transition from one job to the next, level to level, and what were ways that you kind of stayed ready to already have players on deck? What were like some things you kind of did?
Right. Great question, man. It kind of started to the beginning with Coach Davis, man, just kind of putting me out there. One thing that he said, and Coach Price always says, is it's all about image and perception. So it's always, being ready. When you're recruiting, when you're on the road, or when you're making relationships with people, you're always on your P's and Q's. Your first impression is your best impression. So that's one thing that's going to carry over no matter where you go, making sure that, you're carrying yourself the right way and you have your stuff together. And then as far as level to level, I haven't been, I'm coaching here at Lamar. I haven't been to the high level yet, but it seems like everything's relevant. You're constantly in the business of wanting to get guys that are, better than what you had. So, or taking guys that you're not supposed to get, I guess I can say. So at Fort Smith, it's funny how it goes. I was competing against Justin Bailey, trying to sign guys that he was talking to. And whether you get them or not, you're in the ballpark or you keep in that relationship where if they transfer down the road, whatever the case may be. Now being here in Lamar, it's the same thing. You're trying to kind of pull guys that you know is going to be a little harder to get, still staying realistic to where you at. So, I think it's all relevant and everything kind of put in, image and perception, keeping it the same, staying who you are, man, kind of carry over from level to level.
Thank you.
No doubt, bro.
B, it's
Justin
Tommy.
Bailey, Brian Burke. I don't know if you can hear me.
Where you at? What's up, baby? Where you at?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got
I'm
you.
on my phone. I'm on my phone, so you guys excuse me. I may not have my picture up, but great job today, man. Proud of all you're doing. Part of the Lamar family. I'll speak to image and perception real quick. I met you at the Final Four, Northern Arizona. Never knew who you were before that. Figured out you played at Lamar, and I put it together like, man, this guy can be an assistant at Lamar one day. He got an it factor about him. And you stayed true. We always stay connected, and proud of what you're doing there. Love Ryan Price and what he's doing with his platform, and great job speaking today. My question is really simple, man. I've seen some of your YouTube videos or your Twitter videos, your IG videos. I just want to know if anybody on this call or anybody on your team can outshoot you, and how do you expect those brothers to have confidence if they keep losing to you in the shooting contest?
He's sitting right here, man. He's in on the call.
Well, let me tell you something. I do know the person that can guard him on this Zoom call.
Hey, he told me a little something different though, Ryan. He told me a little something different one time though.
Hey, fellas, look. Hey, Ryan's doing an outstanding job with this form. But, hey, I still have scars from Ryan Price, man. I'm talking my neck, my back. He used to rip aggressive, man. But nah, man, it's kind of, I guess it's kind of going back to Coach Bailey asking about relationships, man. I think it's just a way to kind of stay connected to the guys and kind of challenge them and get out there with them. We're big everywhere I've been. It's been big on player development, where you try to meet them every single day that you can. You the first in the gym waiting for them, saying, "Hey, what we doing? How we getting better today?" And one day I'm not gonna be able to shoot, but right now, and this is a shout out to anybody else on this call that want to do something about it. As it's still going in, man, I'm gonna keep it rolling. 20 no rim, Coach Dave.
It may not want to smoke. Proud of you, man. The best is yet to come for you, B. Great job.
Man, I appreciate you, B.
Hey, B, it's Tommy.
T, what's up, my boy?
The one person on the call that can't outshoot you on your staff, by the way. But no, I just wanted to talk to you real quick, talk to these guys. We've had this conversation, obviously, just about, Coach Price kind of at the end of his career, how you've had to kind of balance that a little bit, you working for Coach Price, trying to get him, his championship and stuff like that, like the pressure that you feel, anything like that, kind of being from Beaumont too, obviously wanting to bring, a championship back to your, your alma mater, your hometown and stuff like that. Do you feel any added pressure with that? How do you balance that?
Man, I honestly, and I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, but I've never felt any pressure about it. It's more of an excitement feeling with coming home and with Coach Price having our back. And you know how this league is, man. We have here in the Southland, man. It's anybody can win it any year, man. We got some great coaches and a big time league, and Coach Price just believes in it so much. And it's kind of come back to what we said earlier, just not wanting to let them down. And that's kind of the thing that drives us every single day. Like, man, we got to take care of them. As far as being from home, man, it's great. I don't know, it's crazy to say I'm going on year 4 here, and you know how it is, T. You know how we are in the office every day, and it's kind of like other spots I've been in. You completely dive into it as you still got to network and do things around you. We're fully committed within that office, and we got that locker room tight and that coaching staff tight. So kind of come back what you said, no pressure. It's just us in the office grinding every day and doing business with pure intentions and working hard and knowing it's going to work out.
Right. Well, thank you for always being yourself every day. Everybody on this call needs to know that you're the most genuine person I've been around. So I'm thankful I get to learn from you every day, man.
Man, I appreciate you, T, man. Big time, big dog.
Now I don't have West Pfeiffer, Cabral Huff, or Corey Black type money, but I will go $20 no rim. All right, just so y'all know.
Get back to our G League days. Anybody else on the payroll that want to say something, or we move to Coach Martin and Coach Brock, man?
Any more questions for Coach Chappell?
I got my money, so I'm good. Appreciate it, B.
I'm still waiting for mine, B. I'm still waiting for mine.
B, can you hear me?
Krugster, big dog. What's up, my boy?
What's going on, man? Good to see you. I just had a question about what brought you back to the game, like after you were done playing. Like, what was that one thing that you just missed, or kind of that one thing that pushed you into the coaching side?
Man, it was that's a good question, Krug, man, and happy you on, my man. That's a good question because, you know, coming fresh from it and jumping right into the gym, like I said, training like with Coach Huff and his guys and other kids, it was just seeing somebody working on something and really putting their all into it, and then still want to be a part of that. So it's funny how I did that for a year in Atlanta. Then Coach Davis gives me a call, and it's like, you know what? I'm not sure if I want to go lead the training alone and go on the coaching side, but I want to see the growth. You know, in training, you kind of only touch a guy here and there, but they're going, you know, to their coaching staff or they're coaching all the time. It was kind of wanting to be more a part of that and watching it grow a little bit more. Good question, man. I appreciate you, and that Cash App's coming.
I appreciate you.
B, man, I appreciate you tonight.
No doubt, brother. I appreciate you getting me on, man, and you already know the deal, bro.
Hey, B, now you got to tell RP to Cash App you.
Right. Undisclosed amount.
Man, I appreciate you, my brother.
No doubt, man. I appreciate you.
All right. Our next speaker this evening will be Brock Morris, University of Louisiana. Floor is yours, Brock.
Ryan, appreciate you having me. Man, it's an incredible opportunity to speak to a lot of guys who made it a lot further than I have. So I don't know if I'll have anything to add, and I definitely can't follow up Brandon at all, man. You got all the boys on here, man. They're your guys. So I'm just going to try not to bore them, put them to sleep. So maybe why Ryan put me behind you is there you go. There you go. No, but hey, I appreciate you having me on. I'll go through my journey as well. And then, you know, any questions. Basically, I started out as a poor man in this business, man. I don't, you know, I didn't have anything given to me. My mom and my dad didn't play the game at all. They were into football and basketball and just working hard. You know, my dad got his college degree when he was 40 years old, just to go back, I think, and show me what a father should do. So I grew up very humble beginnings. Was very fortunate to be a part of an AAU team in Alabama, where I got to play with some really good players. Probably thought I was a lot better than I really was. Had some injuries, ended up playing junior college basketball, went over to Alabama and started as a GA, and I was going to go to law school. And staff at Alabama at the time, you know, Mark Godfrey and Philip Pearson, a couple of those guys said, hey, why don't you try coaching? You know, think you might have a shot at this. And I was sitting on, I think, Chris, you were at Georgia Tech at the time. And I was this young guy, and we were just trying to kind of figure out what the heck's in front of us. I don't even remember how many years ago that was now. I think it's double digits, but it's kind of interesting to see everybody grow in this business. Man, my first year in coaching as a GA, Coach Godfrey actually got let go. Chris and them actually beat us really bad. Shumpert, I think, kicked our butt one night, and I think there was something like 28 NBA scouts there. It was packed gym, and they beat us pretty good. And, you know, they let Coach Godfrey go after that. And that was my first introduction to coaching. And I almost went straight to law school from there. I was like, I don't want anything to do with this business at all. And so anyways, stayed on, and Philip Pearson was the interim coach. It actually probably ended up being a personal blessing for me in a weird way, even though I had a lot of close friends on that staff. You know, James Holland, who was a veteran coach, took me under his wing. Jeff Dunlap, Philip Pearson, Antoine Petway was a young coach, came in there, and we got really close. A lot of those guys were at my weddings, how close we got. And Coach Grant came in, Anthony Grant came in and sat me down one day, and he said, listen, I'm going to keep a couple people, not many. And Willie Watson, who's at UNA now as an assistant, does a fantastic job. I don't know if you guys know him. Antoine Petway and myself were the only ones that stayed. And I got an opportunity to learn from the most intelligent person I've ever met in my entire life. I don't know how many of you have ever spent time with Anthony Grant. I know everybody's got their own stories, but for me, it was a doctorate in coaching. Got to go to his house and break down film from him. And my favorite game of all time in coaching was when he went against Billy Donovan, and we were literally changing ball screens every single trip down the floor because they obviously knew what they were doing against each other. So if we were in a blitz situation, Billy was going to lift the shake and they were going to pin us with a flash in the middle of the paint at the nail. So the next time down, we would fake our blitz coverage signal because the crowd was so big. We'd fake our blitz coverage signal and we'd actually be running a drop on the pin side. And so our guys were halfway looking at us like, hey, are we playing the game or are you guys playing chess? And man, I was just a graduate assistant that I had an unbelievable high school coach named Patrick Harding, he's a Hall of Famer in Alabama. And I really never walked into a meeting where I didn't at least have an idea what was going on. But that night, I knew I was over my head. And so I just went and started watching all the film, and it was unbelievable. And I fell in love with film that year with Coach Grant. That's all he does. And I think, you know, he's the National Coach of the Year this year, and that didn't surprise me at all. I think it's what I tell people all the time is Billy Donovan went to the NBA. Okay. He brought one college coach with him. And who was that? Right. And not only did Coach Grant take me under his wing, he taught me how to be a man, how to carry myself. He taught me what a presence meant. He taught me how to respect people, how to look them in the eye, shake their hand. Not that I didn't learn that. I had great parents. They taught me how to act, but he taught me how to do it in this business. And he taught me how to treat people when things didn't go your way. Okay. And I can't tell you guys the mentorship I had. And then on that staff was John Brandon, the head coach of Cincinnati now, who's obviously done a great job. Okay. Antoine Petway has survived 4 coaches at the University of Alabama. And all of you understand that's not easy to do. And so I think that for me, in my first 2 years in coaching, although there was some adversity, I saw a guy lose his job. I saw families have to move who I love dearly. My network exploded with good coaches, and I got an opportunity to learn and sit and listen. And so my advice to any young coaches that are on here is probably shut up. I don't care how much you've played. I don't care how much you think you know. You don't have a clue. And it's good, and have confidence to go in there and have a conversation, right? That was probably the best thing I learned was, you know, John Brandon Dan Hipsher. I mean, Dan Hipsher's on that staff. He's been a head coach a lot of places. He's worked for a lot of guys. None of these guys ever made me feel dumb for coming in and asking a question. And honestly, they wanted me to ask questions from an angle of, okay, improve our program. And so, man, they really challenged me every single day to come up with things that created value for our program. Okay. And it was kind of cool because it was back in a time when we didn't have summer access like we do now, with the coaches being able to work the players out. So the graduate assistants were in charge of running summer workouts. Well, I had to go in there and get Jermichael Green to respect me, McDonald's All-American, who's still with the Clippers. Alonzo G, spent 9 years in the NBA, you know, Richard Hendricks. These guys, I mean, I'm 21 years old. I played junior college basketball. I'm 5'11". They easily could have looked at me and said, man, what do you know? What can you do for me? So it was all about a relationship. I learned that really, really early. Really early was, okay, I'm not going to walk in there and just yell at you and say, you should listen to me because I'm in authority. Okay. So I figured out this, how do I create value for your life? So I'd go home at night and I would actually pull up, you know, Synergy was really new at that time. I'd pull up Synergy clips of every single one of these players. And I'd say, okay, you know, Richard Hendricks. Apologize, guys. My phone's going to do that a few times here. But I would pull up clips of Richard Hendricks and say, okay, in the post, 65% of the time he goes over his left shoulder, he goes with his right hand. But the 35% of the time he goes over his other shoulder, he still uses his right hand. So obviously his comfortability with his left hand is not there in the moment when he has to use it. So then I would take those stats to Richard and I would take 5 or 6 clips, and I'm just a GA. I don't even know if I was authorized to do this, but it was creating value for him. Hey, this is something other teams are probably picking up on when they guard you. Man, and Richard Hendricks, I don't know if you know him at all, but he is an extremely smart guy. So he says, okay, we got to go to work on my left hand. I got to feel like I can just go to it without thinking about it. So anyways, as a graduate assistant, that was kind of my mindset. How do I create value for the players? How do I create value for the staff? They had also had me, I was over the managers. And some of those managers, I look back now, I was training to be a head coach. And I didn't know this until I became a head coach, right? But everything you do today, you're training to become a head coach. All right. So whatever your bucket is in your program, if you are responsible for it, you're responsible for how it looks, how it feels, how it tastes, how it comes across. Well, when you become a head coach, your entire program is that. You don't sleep at night because you're worried about how the perception of your program is because your name is on it. I learned that when I took the head coaching job at Daytona State. I don't know, Chris, what is it, 13 years later? We're all kind of getting there now. But at Alabama, man, I learned a lot because I was over the managers. And so Willie Watson and I worked together, and I would have them stay up there 3, 4 in the morning, and we'd work on AAU schedules on Outlook, because that was what I did. Like if that was due, I was going to get it done. Time didn't mean anything to me. All right. And I knew the only way I was going to kind of make it in this business, if I was going to do it, was forget about time and always be available. My cell phone was always answered, hopefully by the first or second ring if I could. And what I figured out about those managers was they didn't understand why we had to stay till 4 in the morning. They just thought I was a jerk sometimes. Like, I'm a hard driving dude. And so I had to figure out, some guys want to do that in those positions. Some guys don't, but you can still get really good work out of them, maybe 8 to 5. I think that was another lesson I had to learn about becoming a head coach, was every player, every staff member is not the same. Some guys are really good recruiters, but you better only give them 3 or 4 guys. And man, they're going to be phenomenal with those 3 or 4 guys. Some guys can handle 100 guys, and they're great shotgun recruiters. They're really good for 3 months. So you need to bring them at the end, kind of when you've done the work, or on transfers or JUCO guys at the end. But if you need somebody to recruit for 2 years and just maintain a relationship, they're not very good at keeping the train on the tracks. People are different on your staff. Your players, obviously, we all know that, are extremely different. Some guys need to be made angry almost to play harder. Some guys need to be taken aside and talked to. I think we know that pretty much for our players, but I think sometimes we forget about that with the guys we work with. And I learned that lesson at a very early age, not intentionally, but I had 5 managers I was responsible for as a GA. So we get done with that year, and this is really where my career took a turn in the road. Coach Grant had brought me in and said, "Hey, I want to keep you. I want to create a position for you. You're basically going to be my assistant to the head coach." And it was a new position at Alabama. I'm telling you guys, I thought Anthony Grant he was top of the world, and I still do. I think he's a phenomenal man. He's a phenomenal coach. Coach Marlin, who had just gotten the University of Louisiana job, had left Sam Houston, and he was the coach of the decade in the Southland Conference at that time. Had a great run, had a good rep. Some of you guys know him really well. He just taken the Louisiana job, and he had an operations spot open. And at the time, the University of Louisiana had no operations positions in any sport, including football. So there's a guy on the staff who's now the strength coach at Memphis, a guy named Darby Rich. He had played at Alabama. We had a connection. I'll stop there, and I'll tell any young coach that's on here, these Zooms, any kind of connection, look, everybody's got a different path. Brandon, your path was incredible. And I wrote down some notes that were very similar to mine, but different, and about facing adversity, being told no, and being able to respond. If you want to coach in this business, you must be willing or be able to be told no. especially if you want to recruit anybody. You're going to get told no 99 times if you're recruiting good players for every one that you get. Okay. So if you have a problem getting rejected, this may not be the business for you, because you've got to stick your nose back in there and get your hand chopped off again, because eventually you're going to land a big fish if you'll keep battling, right? I mean, some of us, we know that, but some of the young guys, I didn't know that at the time. So I kind of go back to this pivotal point in my life where made a connection with Darby Rich. He gets me on. Bob, Coach Marlin really just needed an ops guy because they didn't have a full staff yet, and he had all this stuff coming at him. Well, and I don't mind sharing this now. It's been so long, but they offered me $20,000 and no benefits. Okay. Now I was making a GA salary, so that was, I mean, I was rich, that was great. But the problem was Coach Grant had offered me 65 grand and full benefits in the SEC, who I thought at the time was about to be, and you see it now, obviously National Coach of the Year this year, right? I knew he was good. So man, I had this choice to make, and I didn't know, I didn't really know. And my mentors, I was still young in the business, so my mentors were probably not as existent. They were either on that staff or on the previous staff. I didn't have somebody to lean on that was maybe outside of the situation. So here I was, 24 years old, making my own decision. And I'm a very religious guy. I prayed about it very strongly. And I actually took the job at Alabama. And I told Coach Marlin, hey, I thank you. I appreciate you. 3 times the money for a guy I thought was really good in the SEC. It just, is in my home state. It made a lot of sense. Guys, I don't know, where you are in your life, but for me, I'm not smart enough to make any decisions on my own. So I pray about everything. And I just go with what's put on my heart, because I've made a lot of dumb decisions. And so I try not to make those decisions anymore. So this literally happened to me. My office was the conference room, and it was huge. It was great, whatever. And I'm supposed to, my first assignment was to design workouts for the players. And I can't type. I literally can't type. And Coach Marlin calls me back and says, listen, I can't do any more about the money. That is what it is. I want to have you. So I'm sitting there, and I'm going to tell you the kind of leader that Anthony Grant is. I don't even have another conversation with him about it. I don't know if he sensed it. I'm not real sure. 2 days go by, and one day I'm sitting there, and he's like, hey, Brock, come in the office. I go in the office. He says to me, do you want to coach? And I thought it was kind of an obvious question, but I said, yes, sir, I do. He said, okay. He said, I'm just going to tell you, I think if you go with Coach Marlin, you're going to be one step away from being a coach, versus here, you're probably going to be a few steps away. And I'm not real sure that I can ever move you up on the court from the position you're going to be in without experience. Anybody that's willing to tell you the truth, even if it's maybe not in their best interest. Now, keep in mind, this guy's trying to hire me. Okay. That's the guys you want to roll with. That's the dudes. So to this day, any decision that I make, I call Anthony Grant to this day. Now, I also will tell you, anyone who's willing to bet on you and hire you, you need to lean on them, because they see something in you. And I don't care necessarily what it's like when you work for them, because sometimes things can get hard and they get stressful, and you might even get beat up on a little bit. And there's probably guys on this call that have been beat up a little bit sometimes. Man, those dudes that believed in you once and hired you, figure out a way to stay close to them. And I'm going to tell you why. And my story kind of goes there here in a minute. All right. But that's a hard thing to do for a lot of guys. It was hard for me in some areas. So I told Coach Grant, I'm going to take that job with Coach Marlin because I want to coach. So I went down there. I went to Louisiana, and we got this thing started. We were able to build a good team, NCAA tournament team. Had 2 NBA players, Alfred Payton, lottery pick, Sean Long, had a lot of involvement here. But one of the things Coach and I talked about at the time was moving up, on the road. How do I get on the road? And he had said, listen, if a spot comes open, I'm going to give you a chance to interview and all that stuff. Well, he had 2 spots come open in my first 3 years. I interviewed. The problem with Louisiana, and it's really good now, is they pay well enough, to be honest with you, that he could always hire, associate coach at Kentucky that just gotten let go, or somebody with a lot more experience. That was just the reality of it. And I didn't understand that in this business. It paid enough money. I couldn't get the job. And Coach and I had gotten very, very close. and we had really bonded, and I was extremely loyal to him. And man, I developed this same sense of love that I have for Anthony Grant. I developed it for Bob Marlin. I mean, he treated me like a son. He gave me a ton of responsibilities, but he never hired me. So a guy named Jeremy Cox, who had been the associate coach at Kentucky, Billy Gillespie, they got let go. He interviews for the job, and he doesn't take it. He takes the College of Southern Idaho job, his junior college job. But when he came down to interview, I was moved up on the road in the interim, and I was working the guys out. And he says is what that he liked my energy, whatever that meant. And I just thought I was doing my job. But when Coach didn't move me up, Jeremy Cox called Coach Marlin, and Coach Marlin called me, and they said, listen, you can have an opportunity to go to CSI and be an assistant. I was like, what is CSI? And they said, junior college. And I was a lot like these players we recruit, okay? Junior college. Come on, Coach, I'm D1. Brandon, I heard you say that. I did the same thing. Coach, man, I'm D1, man. What you mean? I'm high major, Coach. I wasn't JUCO. Come on. I had no idea what JUCO meant. And here's the biggest thing I'll tell people this for years and years and years, and people will not listen to me. I'm an idiot, whatever. If you're young enough and you can afford it, go junior college. Now I'm about to tell you why. Here's what I experienced. First of all, my wife, who's my wife now, she was my girlfriend at the time. And I got to tell you about two different things that was told to me. When I was trying to make this decision, one of my best friends, okay, he's a high school coach in Alabama, Drew Powell. He gave me the line of all lines. He said, hey, man, Columbus took a chance and discovered America. I was like, man, that's pretty good. You're right. So nothing great comes without enthusiasm, right? If you don't take a chance sometimes, don't complain about being stuck. Because if you're not willing to bet on yourself, then why should the guy hiring you bet on you? And my story from here will prove, I think, all of that true. If you can get the job done, take the opportunity that's willing to give you the job. Don't sit there and sulk and get upset that you didn't get moved up or you didn't get the opportunity in a job you don't have, because you got to do the job you have to get the next job. And if you're always worried about the one you didn't get and you turn down opportunities because you're too big time or you can't afford it, whatever, don't make it about money. Make it about gaining experience. There's a bunch of boxes you got to check. And I was able to get a head coaching job. And I'm going to tell you, the biggest thing that I heard when I got that job was, you check these boxes. Well, if I hadn't moved, I never would have checked those boxes. So my wife, we're walking around and I said, what should we do? She said, well, do you believe in yourself? I was like, yeah, I think we can get it done. She said, let's go try it. We're young. Let's go try it. So anyways, long story short, we load up. We're about to drive off. I think we're going to Iowa, and I realize we're supposed to go to Idaho. And I look at the map, and it's a lot further left than I realized. And that's West Coast. Like, I'm thinking Iowa, I can still come down here and coach and, recruit in the South, 65, get on whatever. Man, we're in Idaho. That's one state removed from the ocean. Okay. So if you guys that kind of like me and don't know, well, here's what it did for me. Number one, Jeremy Cox is the absolute best. He is the best head coach, for all of you who don't know him, at training assistant coaches. And he is hard. It's every hour. You better be on, and you better be on fire. And you better be recruiting. You better be watching film. You better be getting the players back to practice. You better know exactly what you're saying. And if you slip up once, you're going to know about it. And it's hard. But he is the best culture coach I have ever been around in my entire life. And look at what they're doing to Stephen F. Austin. I guarantee he's got big hands on that. No question. The guy is about culture. He is about being elite every single day. He will push your boundaries to what you think you can accomplish. And man, when you look up, man, your rubber band is huge. You're like, man, I can do all this? I had no idea. I didn't know I could go 3 days without sleeping and still make calls and be, functional. Man, and losing is not an option. Like, you don't lose. Don't, trust me, do not lose with this guy, right? It is not an option. But man, it makes you crave not to lose. Okay. So all of a sudden you're doing all these little things about getting your guys prepared, ready to make shots in real games. They're in shape. They're healthy. They've been eating. They've been sleeping. They're not going out. All these things an assistant coach that I never realized you had to do. I mean, I'm driving around at 1:00 in the morning and I'm checking every bar. I'm going to every Applebee's restaurant. I'm making sure they're asleep at home. You know, I'm knocking on their doors. And if I hear a girl, I'm telling her to leave. Like, I mean, it's all these crazy things I never thought I'd do. I was making sure they were ready to play. And we went 27-5, got up number 1 in the country. And here's what JUCO did for me. Number 1, it opened up an area for me to recruit. Okay. I got to recruit the West Coast. I never recruited the West Coast. It's kind of like Martin. I mean, I was looking at his bio. He's been everywhere, all over the country. You know, there's nowhere he can't say that he cannot recruit now. Right. It opened up all these relationships for me to recruit. CSI was a national junior college. They put me on a plane on June 30th, and I came back August 2nd. That was it. Now I got to go to Peach Jam, and I got to go to On the Radar, and I got to go to, was Corey Black on here? I got to go to all these events over in Georgia and the South, and man, I got to go to all these places. But the only kick was I just literally couldn't fly back home. They couldn't afford that. So I stayed out. Well, what did I do when I stayed out? Well, sometimes my wife would come meet me, and we'd spend 3 days in Charleston because that's where the event had been in Aiken, you know. Sometimes, though, if she didn't meet me, I just drive and meet college coaches. I just, you know, kind of what everybody does here on Zooms. I just go meet them. Guys started recruiting our player. We had 23 Division I players in 2 years. This is why you go JUCO. Russ Williamson's on this call, and he said this to me last year at Daytona. He said, every day you're at a junior college, you're interviewing. Every single day. And he's right. They see you we had 500 Division I coaches coming there from the highest to highest. I mean, John Calipari, Mike Krzyzewski had just signed. He's the only player ever from junior college from CSI. From all the way down to the lowest D2 you can imagine. They come through the gym if they can, right? And you're on the phone with these coaches at night, and all of a sudden it leads to basketball conversations. It leads to personal conversations. They get to see if these players, you know, if you win, right? My network expanded 10-fold, 100-fold by going junior college. Now, the problem is a lot of you, I'm looking at you, probably too old now. You got families, you can't afford it. And I get all that. But so tell your friends who are young and can do it. If they can go junior college, go junior college. So I go all the way to Idaho with my wife. Jeremy Cox takes the Southern Miss job after 1 year. Okay, so I'm stuck in Idaho. Jared Fay gets the job. I didn't know, but God had another blessing in my life at the time. I didn't know Jared Fay from anyone in the world. He comes in and fires me in the first 5 minutes that he sees me. He goes, hey, man, I'm going a different direction. I'm going to bring in my own guys. I say, okay. Well, that conversation kind of leads to an hour and a half longer conversation. And by the end of it, he said, hey, I'd like to offer you the job and hire you back. So I really don't know how that happened per se. All I know is I got fired and hired by the guy, and he never interviewed anyone else all in the same conversation. So that's just part of the crazy ride that we're all on. Okay. So he then tells me, hey, all these guys you recruited that just went 27-5, I'm going to cut them all. I want you to call everybody, call their parents. That was my first job for Jared Fay. I said, okay, coach. I said, hey, but do you mind if we keep the one All-American that we got coming back? He said, yeah, we can probably do that. So we kept an All-American. We went out and signed 14 new players in a matter of 4 months, probably. We had 14 freshmen and 1 sophomore. Okay. Chris McMillan, who's at Idaho State, was on staff with me. Aaron, who's at Indian Hills, was on staff with me, but they didn't come in until probably June or July. So there for the longest time, it was just Jared and I. Man, it was the greatest experience of my life. You go and you sign that many players. You imagine how many you had to recruit to sign that many, right? You had to get told no, 5-1. I had so much experience making mistakes on evaluations, guys who were better than I thought they would be, guys who were worse. I thought they'd be great. They were terrible. Dealing with handlers. I mean, I dealt with some international handlers. I won't even go into all those stories. I tell you some of those privately. You talking about after dark? We can go into some of those recruiting stories. I went to Chicago, landed at 10:30 at night. The police captain told me if I went into this certain neighborhood that they would not come in and pick up my body. They would drop it at the curb and pick me up the next day. My wife cringes at that story, but I didn't know. I just was going, man. So I went. I knocked on the door. It was midnight, and we got the guy, right? So, I mean, there's all kinds of these crazy junior college recruiting stories. We started out 25-0, and we rise to number one in the country again. And so in those 2 years, we went 58-8, and we had 23 Division I signees because we kind of had two different teams, if you will. And the craziest part was, this is where the blessing came in for me with Jared. We're walking down to practice, the very first practice ever. We're walking down the steps. He looks at me and says, "Hey, I got offense, you got defense." Okay. So we go to practice. I'm thinking, meaning you got defense, like you're going to look over shell drill. I'll run, he'll run the drills. I just kind of keep an eye more on the defense when we scrimmage, right? He goes for 45 minutes on his offense. He goes to the bleachers and he sits down. I'm standing on the court, kind of thinking, okay, this is like a tactic. Maybe we're getting water. I don't know. "Hey, Coach Morris, what do you got today?" Oh, shit. I mean, I didn't know, man. So the number one lesson I learned was always be prepared, right? You never know. Your head coach, I mean, he may wake up today with the flu. What if he calls on you to coach the team at practice? Are you prepared? Do you know what he wants, right? We hadn't had these conversations. Turns out he was literally going to let me run the defense. Okay. I spent the next 48 hours, I don't think I slept, and designed an entire install plan, defensive philosophy, everything you can imagine, how we're going to teach step by step. Man, he gave me the most incredible gift I never expected. And that was the opportunity to be the head coach of a side of the ball. So they do these Massey rankings. We ended up being the number one defense in the country. Now, it was because we had really good players. It had nothing to do with the defense, okay? Don't get it twisted. But it was an opportunity for me to hang my hat on something and really gain confidence as an assistant coach. And, man, I learned so much about how to teach, how to install a macro, big plan, right? So we can all teach how to do a closeout, but can you teach the entire system? Like, what do you want to do when you want to blitz a ball screen with a certain guy, but you want to ice it with a certain guy? Do you want to force guys left? What's your philosophy? What's too confusing for your players to understand? Don't be smarter than your players, right? Don't try to be smarter than your players. They got to play the game. Can you keep it simple, right? Can you get them to play fast? Can they recognize what they're supposed to do before it's actually happening? Do they enjoy doing? Because without enthusiasm, nothing great was ever accomplished. And your players got to have enthusiasm, okay, to be great at it. So is it fun? Now, one thing I learned about the word fun is kind of like the word "I love you." We tell our players, "I love you" every single day. Well, what does love mean? We defined it at Daytona as this: love doesn't mean giving you everything you want. Love means holding you accountable to reach your hopes, dreams, and desires. Well, fun's kind of the same way. What does fun mean to you? Does it mean laughing and joking or winning? There's two different types of fun now, because to get to winning, we got to hurt. We got to have growing pains, and that's part of all of our careers. So what I would challenge you guys, and this is what happened to me, is be prepared if that day your coach looks at you and says, "Hey, you got the defense." What would you do? Because as I go with my story, in August of that year, the next year, that summer, a spot opened up at South Alabama as an assistant job. Well, Russ Williamson was on this call here. He and I connected about that. And Matthew Graves, who was the head coach there at that time, had come from Butler, been Brad Stevens' associate coach. He kind of needed or wanted a guy who was maybe connected more in the South. Along with Russ, he kind of figured out in his first 2 years at South Alabama needed to be a little bit more regional recruiting. And I got the job in August. I go in, Russ and Arch and Graves, they were building, and it had been tough a little bit in the first 2 years, but man, we were really excited, and we were building and building. And after the first year, Coach Graves came to our staff meeting, and he said, "Guys, we're really struggling on offense. I'm going to take over the offense." He said, "Russ and Brock, you guys take the defense." So here we were again in a matter of 2 years. Russ and I, and Coach Graves, to his credit, I mean, and Russ can tell you, literally took his hands off of it and allowed us to be the head coach of the defense. And we came up with an install plan, and Coach Graves always wanted to see it and blessed it. And he was in charge, but we ran it every day. We ran the meetings, we ran the film, we ran the adjustments. That was our job. And Russ and I developed a relationship out of that that I think is as strong as brothers today, because, we really gained respect for each other. We argued, we threw stuff at each other. And to me, when you're on a great staff, that's what you do. If you're really passionate about what you do, you've got to have honest conversations with each other about what should happen on the court. If it's just a yes man, okay, you're going to do the wrong things. But if you have honest conversations that respect each other, that's when you grow in a coaching staff. Well, going into our third year, or my third year, it was their fifth year. We got our defense up to 16th in the nation on synergy, entire country. It includes the high majors. We were 6th in the nation guarding the 3-point shot. Unfortunately, the other side of the ball, we couldn't quite get there, and we won 14 games and we were let go. Man, you talk about an adjustment. Some of you on here I know have been let go before, and you talk about a life-changing experience is get fired, right? And especially as an assistant, because it's kind of weird. Like, are they firing you? Are they firing your head coach? Are you fired with them? What do you do now? You're attached. It was extremely difficult for me, because in my entire life, everything had been on the upward trajectory. Everything had been like a step up, right? This is the first time I kind of really faced adversity in terms of real life. Like, hey, I have a child now, I have a wife. Like, you don't have an income. What are you going to do? And I think that's when you find your best friends in this business. I really believe that. I've tried to make a habit of friends that I know that have gotten let go, because it's going to happen to you at some point, unless you're just a lucky guy. It's going to happen. Okay. Don't freak out. It'll be fine. People don't think you're a failure. If you'll stick with it and be a good person and you have good friends, you're going to land on your feet, especially when you treat people the right way. About a month later, I was just lucky. God bless us again. The AD at Daytona State's daughter happened to play at Alabama when I was there. I mean, of all places, right? They got an open head coaching job. Eric Pastrana had left and gone to FAU, and I had a connection. And so the softball coach at Alabama, his daughter played softball. She was an All-American, called the AD for me. And I'll stop here. And one of the questions I always get when I talk on some things like this is, how do you get a head coach job? What'd you do? And I think everybody on here wants to be a head coach at some point, and some people maybe already have. And I don't have any special story, just so you know. But before I got this job, I'd interviewed for 5 head coaching jobs and gotten obviously none of them. So I'd been rejected 5 times. Kind of going back to Brandon's point, and that's why I wrote it down. You almost have to be rejected to actually get where you want to go to some degree, because you don't know what you don't know. All right. By interviewing 5 times, one of them was at CSI when Coach Cox left, went to Southern Miss. I actually interviewed for the job in front of a full committee. I'd interviewed at Motlow State. Okay. I'd interviewed Armstrong Atlantic. I thought that was interesting that you brought that up, Brandon. Interviewed there. And what it did for me is it allowed me to make my books. Okay. Here's some mistakes I made. It's kind of getting off my journey, but these are mistakes I made. My first ever book was 118 pages long. Yep, I was that guy. It had every single drill that I knew, every play that I knew. It had every recruiting tactic I'd ever tried in terms of getting the kids' attention. It was in this massive book. And the reason, I'll just be honest, was I had read a story about the guy interviewing for the New York Giants, and he came in with a 300-page book about every single thing that was going on in the program. So I did it. The AD at Armstrong Atlantic calls me, and she's giving me feedback after the interview and tells me, Coach, I'm sure this book's great, but I don't have time. And I'm worried if I try to read the first page, it won't do it justice. So I'm just going to let you know I'm not going to read it. Wait a minute. I just spent all this time on 118 pages, and you're not even going to read one page? So I talked to some buddies, and some people are starting to say, no, don't bring a book, make it 20 pages, whatever. I went and burnt a 118-page book that night. I literally put it in the fire pit and it burned. Half of it I was angry. Half of it I didn't know what to think, but it burned. Okay. I may have it saved somewhere, but I don't really know. So the next interview was Motlow State. Well, I make a 25-page book because I still had a hard time letting go of the details, right? I'm a detail-oriented guy. Okay, that worked a little better. I got to the final two. Didn't get the job. Burton got the job. He's a lot better coach than me. He deserved it anyways. Okay. I get to CSI. I come in there with an 8-page book. 8 pages. They don't even look at it because they all know me. I've been there for a year coaching. So my next lesson was, if you're trying to get a job somewhere that you've been, you're interviewing today, don't worry about your book. Because your book's not going to tell them anything they don't know about who you are today. Shake the people's hands, be truthful, be nice, do the best job you can. That's your interview. So when I got the Daytona State job, I kept it at 10 pages and I'd put no X's and O's in there. I put non-negotiables, what our program is going to stand on, how we're going to run academics, how we would do discipline, how I would hire a staff, how we do community service, how we would develop players outside of basketball. And then I put my resume. 0 X's and O's. And here's what I learned. ADs, they don't care if you're going to play fast, or you're going to play slow. They don't care if you're going to run zone, if you're going to run man. They want to know that when they wake up tomorrow, you're not going to be in the newspaper and the players aren't going to be in the newspaper, that you're going to have good academic GPA they can tell their president about and share in the community. They want to know at the end of the day, the house isn't going to burn down. However you get to wins and losses, they'll tell you that in 3 or 4 years, whether or not they want you to come back. Now, I'm not saying that works for everybody. I'm sure some people want to know a style of play. But at the end of the day, what they really want to know is how you're going to run a program and be a CEO. So I go in and interview at Daytona State, and the number one thing I said was, I believe being a head coach is setting a process and holding people accountable. I said, I'm going to set a process for everything in our organization, and I'm going to hold people accountable. I said, I want to hire 4 assistant coaches so I can prepare myself to be a Division I head coach one day. That's my only negotiating point. I don't care about money, nothing else. I want to be able to hire 4 assistant coaches so I can learn how to run a staff the right way so that I can have an opportunity to be a Division I head coach. And I had an opportunity to hire 4 assistants. Now, here's what I'm also going to tell young coaches. Understand, I had 250 applications to go through. I had 1 full-time paid spot, had to have a master's. It was a requirement because they had to teach a class. I had 1 volunteer spot that would get some work, sideline work in the weight room. Okay. I had 1 spot that I could make a student, so like a GA type deal, because it was a 4-year college. All right. And then I had 1 spot that was a complete volunteer. You will not believe the people I tried to hire who were so worried about the money and wouldn't take the experience. Guys that honestly, I think if they'd have done it for 1 year would be Division I coaches. Because they're really talented, really good, but they wouldn't take the job. And I'll be honest, there's some high school coaches on here. 3 guys I'm thinking of are high school coaches. High school coaches that say all the time, man, I'm looking to get in. I'm looking to get in. I want to get in. But what I found out is they wanted to get in if the circumstances were right. Now I get it. Everybody's got a family. Everybody's got things they got to take care of. I'm not condemning that. But these 3 guys that I brought in for an interview, I could only bring in 5. From what I know, they could have done it. Now, it would have been a sacrifice. Absolutely, man. It's peanut butter and jelly all day. I mean, sometimes you only get 1 piece of bread, don't even get 2. I get it. I've been there. All right. But we ended up with 8 Division I players. We won 25 games. We had 545 Division I coaches come to that gym. Some of you who are on this call came through. You would have, assistant coach would have had an opportunity every day to interview in front of a Division I coach who might have got a job or might have had an entry-level job for you to get in at that level. So that that was a great experience for me. I was not looking to leave that experience. Coach Marlin called me after the year, and we had a few other opportunities we'd said no to. I really planned on being there 3 or 4 years, really learning how to be a head coach, and then maybe getting back into Division I level. And I'd always said I wasn't going to leave Daytona unless it was the right place the right resources that could win the league. It had to be a top 3 job. That was kind of my thought because I had a head coaching job that I liked. We liked living on the beach in Daytona. It was a nice place. And I thought we could win and win big there. And Louisiana had changed a lot of things in the last few years. They'd invested a ton of money, paid a huge cost of attendance, did $25 million in the arena. I think we paid the largest cost of attendance in the South. I'm not sure exactly. But there were some opportunities to go recruit elite players, good players, and they had been doing that. They'd been winning. And then the biggest part, too, is the staff here. I don't know, you guys know Justin Crow, Neil Harden, Coach Moreland, Anthony Goldwire. Man, these guys are like my brothers. They are my guys. And Russ knows something about me, man. I got to have close people that I really trust and love and respect. And I'm going to tell you, if you guys hadn't gotten to know Justin Crow on our staff, you know, some of you from Houston might know him. He is a superstar. Like the guy, when he stands up and gives scouting reports, when he commands the team on the court, he has it. He's got that it factor. He's a former player. He knows it, man. He learns, though. That's the thing about him, is like he's always just trying to learn and ask and all this stuff. And so I felt like the staff was in place for us to have a chance to really win a lot of games. Coach Marlin's obviously done a great job. He'll be the winningest coach in the Sun Belt Conference, hopefully this year, with eight wins in the history of the Sun Belt, fastest ever to do it. So there's some expectations at Louisiana. Some of you know about this job, some of you don't. There's some expectations. You know, Chris is in our league now, and, you know, he knows, you know, Georgia State's the same way. And there's some expectations. They expect you to win, but I'd rather have that than at a place that didn't care. So we'll see. So that's kind of my journey. I don't know how much time I just took up. Sorry, Ryan. It gets kind of boring, but I'll questions or whatever now.
Yeah, we got any questions for Brock?
Brock.
What's up, Russ?
You know I got a question for you, buddy.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hello?
Hello?
Can you guys hear me?
Hey. I can hear somebody. I don't know
You guys hear me? You hear me? Hello?
We can hear you, Serge.
And tell Dunn to get you a better Wi-Fi service, man.
Right. Yeah, man, I'm on this bad Wi-Fi. Hey, Brandon, good job, man. I caught you on the back end, did a really good job. And Coach Brock, were you on staff with Russ when you played at the Mohegan Sun?
Yes, sir.
That last year in South Alabama?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that game, I was on the staff at St. Peter's. I think the score might have been like 38-39, final score. And you guys won by 1. Was the score, Russ?
All I know is we shot a combined 18%.
That was some bad basketball. Very good defensive teams, but some bad offensive.
That was one of those games that made the defense look good. I don't know how good the defense was.
I was just going to ask you, what did you appreciate the most about your job? Well, it sucked for the team that lost, that scored 38, and that was us. So anyway, did you hear my question?
What did I appreciate about the journey?
Yeah.
Serge, I can't hear you. Is that it? Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. You know what? Man, I've worked for 6 different head coaches, and think about those staffs. I mean, I see Deontay Ferguson on here now. I mean, the people that we have had an opportunity to be around, I think has been incredible. That's what I appreciate the most about the journey, moving different places. You know, my wife and I have had an opportunity to experience, you know, different areas of the country, but the people have just been unbelievable. The people we've worked with. I mean, I don't know of a person, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, that I don't like, that I've worked with. And we've been very blessed and very fortunate with that. And those people have gone on to have a lot of success. So that's probably been the best part about the journey, in my opinion. Serge, I don't know if you could hear me or not. I know that.
Thank you.
Wi-Fi going in.
Hey, we're gonna shut it. Serge, we gotta shut your Wi-Fi down, big dog.
Sir's got to pay that cricket bill.
Yeah.
Hey Ryan, you got to get him an upgrade, man. Go ahead and send it to him through the mail.
Hey, I got a question for Brock.
Hey, Justin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well.
I'm sick.
I think we met a couple times on the road before, but you mentioned if you had the chance to go work at a junior college, do that. And I heard that plenty of times. The relationships you can build, the networking you can do. I guess my question to you, man, is how can you tell which relationships are genuine? Because you know everybody wants your best players. So there's bullshitting you, acting like they like you. You know what I mean? Or vice versa, whatever it may be. But how can you tell if a relationship is genuine, especially at that level?
It's a great question. And here's something unique for me, okay? So I went from CSI, obviously all these guys getting recruited, to South Alabama, now recruiting the junior college, back to junior college again. So I kind of knew what to expect when I went to Daytona. The short answer is I don't know that you can tell, because these guys are good at what they do. All right. They're really good at what they do. Here's what I've found. Understand it is what it is and don't get angry about it when you're at junior college. It is what it is. It may not turn out to be a guy you're going to invite to be in your wedding, but it might end up being a connection that can help you down the road. They're using you for a player, right? To try to get a player. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Get to know them, treat them honestly, treat them fair. That was the biggest thing I tried to do at Daytona. I told our staff, treat all these guys, they got a job to do. Give them information. Don't get in the middle of it, okay? And be honest with them. And a lot of things, what I did as the head coach is I said, I'm going to run everything in recruiting by me, not so that I was in charge of it, because I didn't want one assistant, look, we've all been there, right? You try to get that assistant coach at the JUCO to help you, and all of a sudden he's pitted up against the other assistant coach, and it screws up a staff, right? So as the head coach, I was like, I want all of it go through me. But I also wanted my guys to make connections. And, like a deal, who's on our staff, got hired at Chicago State. Chad Donnelly's now at East Tennessee, and Justin Mann's at Independent. So all those guys got jobs, out of it. And so anyways, going back to your relationship part of it, I don't think until years down the road. Now, some of those relationships have turned into authentic for me, very, very authentic. I'm not going to give away all the private conversations, but some of these guys have been real good friends. Some of them, you know what? I don't really hear from them anymore. But when I see them on the road, there's a professional acquaintance. And I think that's the best way to look at it.
I got you. I appreciate that. By the way, I played for Jeremy Cox, so I can only imagine how it's working for him.
Then. Hey, genius.
Great guy. Love Coach Cox to death, man.
Yep. He's a great assistant trainee. If you ever go work for him, everybody needs to work for him.
Definitely.
Brock, I got a question, man.
Yes, sir.
I want everyone to know I've just finished my 15th year Division I, and I can tell you Brock is one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. He's as sharp as they come. Can you talk to some of the people on here about your process? Because you made a statement there, you don't know what you don't know. And so I spent 8 years at Tennessee Tech before I went to South Alabama. So I only know what Tennessee Tech and the work ethic that I learned there. And I learned so much from Brock about at night, settling in, watching film. This is the best thing, what to look for, that kind of stuff. So can you kind of talk about that? I know you mentioned a little bit about Anthony Grant. Can you kind of talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah. And Brandon, what's that app you told me I had to send money to? Cash App? I think that's what it is, right?
Cash App, man. It never fails you.
I guess I owe Russ now. Russ, that was nice of you to say, and I appreciate it. And first thing I'm going to say, guys, if you don't have a Russ in your life, get a Russ in your life, okay? Some of you know him, but if you don't have a Russ, get a Russ. And here's what I mean by that. Everybody needs somebody in their life that at least makes them think they know what the hell they're doing, even when they don't, okay? Every day I came to the office, I felt like I was Brad Stevens because this dude would say stuff like that, all right? And it just lifts you up. It makes you feel like you know what you're doing before you get there. But Russ talking about the process. So for me, Family's big and important. I always said this, I don't want to be a coach without a family, and family will always come first. So we would work in the office, normal hours, whatever they were, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock. Well, 5, 6 o'clock, I guess we'd go home. I'm going to eat dinner with my family, and I'm going to spend 1 hour, and usually it's watching a TV show or something with my wife. And she doesn't get usually more than an hour. Sometimes she doesn't get that hour, but most nights she's going to get that hour. But after that, I mean, it's 8 o'clock. I've got 4 hours till I got to go to sleep. Midnight's kind of my cutoff. Sometimes it'll bleed to 1. I don't need a lot of sleep, but I got 4 hours and I got to go to work. And that was what I learned from Coach Grant was after dinner. If you want to be great, those are the 4 hours you can gain on everybody else. It's kind of the Kobe Bryant mentality a little bit that, 4 hours multiplied times 200 days, how many more hours did you get on somebody else? And now in those 4 hours, what would you do? Well, recruiting calls is obviously what we do, but I was really big on watching film, right? Just if there's a game on TV, but really on Synergy where I could rewind, fast forward, learning new formations. Okay, how would I guard that? If we saw that today, how would I guard that? And Kellen Sampson told me something that his dad's doing at Houston I thought was really good. He's actually having the staff do that for an hour a day now. And, he'll text their video guy, hey, bring up all the ball screens from the Eastern Conference Finals from 2009. Not that he has anything specific from that year. It's just, let's watch them. So they watch all ball screen action, right? And they'll talk for an hour. How do we guard this? What do we like? Maybe they steal it for their team, right? So I thought that was pretty good to add to a team concept from a staff development standpoint and your team. But for me, I would try to get that in every night. And really accelerated my learning. And it all stemmed back from Anthony when I would go to his house after dinner and I would literally just sit there and watch film with him. And it was a master's class. I mean, he was a genius. And so I would just listen. And I kind of carried that on to my professional life. Is that what you're talking about, Russ?
Yeah, the late nights, and you and I would text and go over defense and our little plan that we had.
Yeah. No, I think that's the best way. I'm a huge analytic guy too. Russ and I talk analytics. I'm massive. I'm actually doing a study. It's taking me about 2 months right now on shot selection. There's a small team in Wisconsin. There's a book out that I read this spring. It's called The Hot Hand. And it talks about hot streaks, right? And it talks about people in all across the world in businesses and how do they keep having success after success after success, right? And one of the things they talk about a high school coach up in the north, and he coaches at a high school where they don't really have athletes. It's all, theater majors and all this stuff. And long story short, they win state championships all the time. And then because they try to take 5% or less bad shots a game. So I started thinking, well, how would I define 5% or less bad shots? Because everybody has a bad shot. Everybody has a good shot. It's off the dribble, mid-range pull up, lean back. Well, Brandon shoots that at 75% because he's a dude. I mean, if I shoot it, it's going to be at 30%. So what's a good shot? What's a bad shot? And so it really started doing a study on that. And what I found out is teams that win 25 games or more in one bid leagues shoot 82% green shots. So catch and shoot threes or layups. They shoot 82% of those on a season on average. It's over 40 teams over a 4-year study. So I can go into analytics all day. We can do that probably different.
You would have enjoyed our conversation last week, Dan. we had a very thorough conversation about that. Anybody that was on there last week, I know Big Perk. I don't think he's on here now, but he gave his opinion about the analytics deal.
Yeah, it got a little personal, man.
Hey, so I flew up with the Hornets this past year, and we studied a lot of the drive, kick, swing offense that's taken over, in the NBA and all this stuff, and how we can get these green shots. And it's funny, man. Those guys in the NBA that are good, probably like Perk, but maybe don't necessarily believe. I don't know what his stance was. But some of these analytics now, it can get a little tricky.
Right, man, Brock, man, great stuff, man. My I-10 brother, man. I appreciate listening to you tonight, man. You're a very sharp guy, man. You're on top of your stuff, and it's been really good. What I want to do is kind of go back a little bit and talk about that delicate balance, because I think Justin Bailey asked a question talking about relationships. When you were doing the GA thing, and I kind of stood out to me when you was talking about Richard Hendricks, and he was a big time player. I remember him coming out of high school. that relationship between you when you're a GA and you're with the coaching staff, but you're kind of with the players and balancing that. How closely does that, now that you're assistant, and I mean, you've been up in the ranks, you've been a head coach, and now, even with your analytics and everything that you use, do you kind of tap back into that relationship you have with the guys now, and how you kind of balance that out?
Man, that's a great question. It's probably something I didn't hit on that actually changed my life. So, Justin, understand this. After the year working with Jeremy at CSI and in between Jared getting the job, I told y'all, I didn't know what was going to happen. And I was going to get out of the business to some degree. I was actually going to go back to law school at that time. It was just too much, man. It was too hard to move up. I was at that point. And I think, Brandon, you talked about that earlier, like just what do I really want to do, right? What do I want to do? And I got to that point, and we actually had this place called Napa Valley that happened to be close to Twin Falls. So it was a good place to kind of go get away. And my wife and I talked about, let's change our approach to how we do this. Let's give it one more chance. Everything we had done up to that point was about winning, right? So we recruited to get players to win. We scouted and we just moved on to the next game, and it was all about winning. We really said we're going to create value for other people's lives. And that turned on I'll just tell you guys, and I don't open up too much about all my personal beliefs, but every night I try to pray for every single player on our team and our coaching staff, just that they'll be blessed, they'll have the opportunities they look for. Man, when you really start caring about people, I think more than yourselves. When you're if you want to be first, you got to be last, right? That's the relationships that changed my life, because when we came into that next year, we actually started out 25-0, but it had nothing to do with winning. It was about creating value for that player. And we did that, I kind of go back to the GA story. We did that, but we didn't realize we were doing that. It was all rooted in trying to win and be successful in ourselves at that time. And then it became creating value for that individual player or coach that's on your staff. And, our life, even through adversity, even through getting fired. But I mean, I just look at my relationships now, and they're so much stronger because of that. And I have enjoyment in what we do.
Yeah, no, that's very true. You get lost in it, and you don't even realize what you're doing and what you're developing, because it's all based on improving it. Now, you answered that perfectly, man. Appreciate you.
No, man, appreciate you. You did a great job too. Hey, I'll tell you just one other comment for anybody got any more questions. The head coach of Illinois State came down last year, was recruiting one of our guys, and he made this comment to me. He said, hey, you need to always have a list of guys you would hire. He said, you never know when you're going to get hired for your head coaching job, wherever you're at. And Russ and I actually talked about this the other day. Biggest mistake I made at Daytona was I didn't have a list for JUCO. And I took a JUCO head coaching job. I had a list if I would have got a Division I job, probably different levels. But, man, I ended up taking a JUCO job, and I didn't have a list. I had no clue who I was going to hire. And everyone that I knew in the business at that time had kind of risen or gotten out to a point they couldn't take those jobs. I didn't know the younger generation of guys. I didn't know the 22 to 25-year-olds or 30-year-olds that would take it. So one thing tonight is I'm looking around on this screen, like I'm making some notes over here, but Dan Muller told me, he said, look, man, you need to have a running list. When you hear guys speak, when you hear guys talk, when you hear their stories, maybe you didn't know. If you think they're good, put them on a list, right? Like, man, if I get a job and it may be a certain area, it might be whatever, but I got guys, and that would be the other thing, just looking on here tonight, man, everybody on this thing should be doing that, because you never know when you're going to get your job.
Coach, I had a question for you. How are you?
Hey, Cody, what's up, buddy?
Not much. Everything's good. I had talked to you about it before, your evaluation process, like specifically from when you were at Daytona. Mm-hmm. I know you looked for guys who had a certain height, wingspan, et cetera. Can you, I guess, briefly talk about your evaluation process with that, and if maybe there was a stud at a certain position you were looking at, but he might be undersized, if you would make an exception, or just kind of your thought process on that?
Yeah, and Cody knows kind of a lot of this. So I go back to Alabama. One of the coolest things that ever happened to me was Nick Saban got the job at Alabama in 2007 when I was there, okay? And so we got to meet with their staffs pretty often, right? And I got to another PhD in coaching for 3 years. I got to sit there and just take notes. And one things he did that I thought was interesting in football was they had a very specific protocol for players for each position. And I believe in this so strongly, and some people won't agree with me on this, and that's fine. But I did it at Daytona, and it worked for us. He went through and he said, okay, how do we want to play? And what do we need this position to do? And in order to do that, right, do they need to be a certain height and weight wingspan? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. So for me, I wanted to eliminate inefficiencies for my coaching staff. There's a million players out there, and everybody has a debate whether or not that guy can play, this guy can play, whatever. So I said this, I went back and I studied our conference, and I wanted to know the average, of what that player was, speed, height, athleticism in our league. So for me, and I'll give a little briefly, it can get really in depth, but we wanted 4 point guards, 4 wings, 4 forwards, and we actually got 15 scholarships. So I would take 3 scholarships that I might not do anything with, might wait for a transfer, whatever. But that's how I wanted to build my team: 4 point guards, 4 wings, 4 forwards. The 4 forwards all had to be 6'8" or bigger, plus 5 wingspan, plus 9 hand. Okay, why plus 9 hand? There's some guys in the NBA I've met with, and the ball never changes sizes, right? So when you look at plus 9 hands, turnover rate goes down, shooting percentage goes up on average in the NBA when they have a plus 9 hand. Plus 5 wingspan at a forward position. I want those guys position specific. What I want them to be able to do is protect the rim and rebound the ball, right, on the defensive side. So I need their wingspan to be able to go up above someone. Now, I didn't put necessarily a measure on a vertical or any of that, but I wanted 2 of those 4 guys to be able to shoot 36% or higher from 3. So by doing that, our staff went out and looked for guys that met that. So if they brought in a 6'5" forward, he had to be special. I'm not saying I would say no, but he had to be special, right? He had to be elite because he already didn't meet the physical characteristics. Now, he may have met the mental and the IQ and some other characteristics, and maybe he gets to a grading standpoint that we'll take him. But hey, if he's not elite, then just move on. Don't even worry about it. Maybe we miss on a good player, but ultimately I'm trying to make the decision process easier for the assistants. Cody, does that kind of answer what you're talking about?
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you.
Good question, Cody. Yeah.
Brock, man, hey, we appreciate you tonight, man. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you having me. You guys do a great job on here.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it, man. Next up, Martin Bahar, San Diego. Appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me. It's not too late for me. It's almost 8 here. What is it? Almost 11 back there?
Yeah, well, no. Here is 9:45, so we good. I know we got some East Coast guys, so I know it's getting to that 11 o'clock time for guys like Marlon Gill and them right now. So I know it's past bedtime.
Based on that chat, it looks like some guys have already started sipping, so they're having a good late night. Hey, what's up, fellas? I'm really honored to be here, Coach Price. Thank you for having me. Obviously, I think I'm the lone West Coast guy on this call here, but the group of coaches that I'm just scrolling through and seeing, it's really impressive. I mean, a lot of great guys, a lot of longtime coaches who've coached all over the country, and obviously, I'm an East Coast guy who moved west in 2015. But to be on here, and Brock and Brandon, you guys did a great job. Look forward to our relationship growing. Brock and I had spoken in the past. Brandon, I feel like you and I are guys who could be friends the rest of our careers. So you guys did a wonderful job. I'm from Potomac, Maryland. I grew up in the area right outside of Washington, D.C. I went to Bullis High School. And in high school, I coached for a coach named Mike Hibbs, who was from the DeMatha coaching tree, who's currently the head coach at Canterbury School in Fort Myers, Florida. So he left the DC area several years ago. But Mike Hibbs was the guy who kind of really cultivated my love for the game and my passion for coaching, coming up through his summer camps, which, every summer, 5 to 6 weeks as a middle schooler I would go to, then eventually going into high school where he ran his summer camps for his high school players as workers as if it was like a college program. So we would work out 6 to 7, 7 to 7:30 in the morning. Camp would start at 8. We had no time to shower. We had to work all day in that hot Washington, D.C. humidity and heat in the summer. And then we would play in one of 2 summer leagues usually after camp hours, the Kenner League, which is really well known in the DC area, and then the Rock Summer League at High Point High School. So my high school coach, I feel like, set the tone for me. It really had a great passion for the game, great daily enthusiasm, but also taught us a lot of lessons about accountability, discipline, and work ethic, which I feel like have helped carry me through my career even to this day as, almost a 36-year-old now. So from high school, I chose to go the academic path. I went to Vanderbilt University. I was a student manager there for 4 years. My 4 years there were great. I was a manager for Kevin Stallings, a couple of his assistants, Dan Muller, one of them, who Brock mentioned, Jeff Jackson, Tom Richardson were all future head coaches or former head coaches. And during the time there, a guy named Matt Freege from Kansas was a terrific player who really led our team my first 2 years there. He took us to the Sweet 16 in 2004. He eventually was drafted, played in the NBA for 3 seasons. And then that next group of guys featured Derek Byers, who played in the NBA briefly. Damari Carroll transferred from Vanderbilt to Missouri, but he eventually played in the NBA and has lasted a long time. And Shane Foster, who was the all-time leading scorer at Vanderbilt. So I was really lucky to kind of, and you'll see a theme, I feel like, in terms of my career, like I kind of walked into situations just as things were ascending. I was just a manager, working, doing the scoreboard, the shot clock, doing laundry, which was an extra financial stipend, which I appreciated at the time, but part of the deal. And I was excited to do it and be a part of it every day. So part of my process to being a coach, it kind of in the summers as a manager, like many of you I'm sure on here did, I would work summer camps across the country. So Notre Dame camp, I vividly remember working Coach Bray's camp, which was early in his tenure there. And, I remember flying out to South Bend, getting to the dorm, ready to go. Didn't have any sheets for the bed. So for a couple of days during camp at Notre Dame, I slept on a newspaper, which I found. And eventually one of the other camp counselors, we drove over to a local Walmart and got some small rinky-dink sheets. So worked at Georgetown as well, back in my hometown. And that was really an exciting time. And obviously my career took off from Georgetown, as I'll talk about pretty soon here. Miami, worked at camp at Miami, and they didn't have space for me to work, but I flew down there to see my best friend Luis Botero from Vanderbilt over the summer and worked their camp for free, and among other places, just local camps as well, and just kind of did the camp circuit to network. And that's kind of it's a different realm now, networking, which I think we all realize. It's kind of more of the traditional path is going through camp circuit. Now it's more, AAU and recruiting and that whole process, which AAU wasn't huge growing up for me, at least. Obviously some people played in the late 90s, early 2000s, but it really took off in the mid 2000s with the shoe circuit and all those things. So essentially in the summer times, I was just trying to network, and part of that networking was at Georgetown, which camps I worked a couple summers, and Coach Thompson III was the head coach. And so obviously I was trying to plant the seed while at Vanderbilt to being a graduate assistant. And, they let me work their camps. I got to know Matt Henry well, who worked with Marlon Guild, who's on this call right now, worked with Serge also, who's still trying to get his Wi-Fi going. And, so Matt Henry really helped me get in the door at Georgetown. And essentially after working a couple camps over the summers, they said, well, listen, if you can get into grad school, we can talk about a graduate assistant position. And, little do they know that, I'm a Vandy guy, so I'm a kind of a decent student. I got into Georgetown grad school, this communications program, and I got in. And so Coach Thompson had me come work the camp all summer. And one thing he did was, he's very meticulous, deliberate thinker. He's a Princeton alum. And at the end of the summer, it was getting pretty close to the start of school. He called me in his office, said, "You've got the job, congratulations." And that was the conversation. That was it. I kind of, right place, right time. They had lost, they never had a graduate assistant, but they had lost several managers, and sliding into a role with significant financial aid and for one of those manager slots was a huge blessing for me. So I was able to get an opportunity at Georgetown. And when I talk about sometimes you need luck in this thing, man, my first year at Georgetown, we went to the Final Four, and our team had Jeff Green, Roy Hibbert, Patrick Ewing Jr., who played in the NBA and was honestly one of the best teammates and quote unquote role players, which I had honestly ever coached. And he was a tremendous player. We had a great point guard, John Wallace, who played for the works for the Denver Nuggets, played overseas for about 10 years. So we really had a great experience there. And honestly, like, I just had to be a 5-tool, 3-tool player. I had to be able to do a lot of different things for the program, a lot of video work, a lot of on-court work with a lot of the veterans who had great work ethic. I mean, Roy Hibbert had a full sweat before practice every single day. Jeff Green worked out before practice every single day. And, you know, when your best players and future longtime pros have that type of work ethic, I mean, that's just something that really, really benefits the entire program, because when your players have that passion, have that drive, have that love of the game, the love and the will to get better every single day, all you coaches know on here, like, it makes coming to work every single day fun. It's enjoyable. You know that your team is in good hands when the coaches step away. So with that season, we won the Big East tournament, we won the Big East regular season, and we had a great run to the Final Four. And, you know, that memory of that first season in your first year of coaching, it's euphoria. You know, you're just so excited every single day to go in the office. When you go to the Final Four, you're carrying luggage off the bus, but you still feel like a rock star. And I'm like, whoa, first year in coaching, this is unbelievable. And then the next thing you know, you just don't know when you're going to go back. You don't know when you're going to have great success. You don't even know when you go to the NCAA tournament again. So that second year, Roy Hibbert was a senior, won the Big East regular season, had a very good season. We lost in the conference championship to Pitt. In the second round of the NCAA tournament, we played a man named Steph Curry. And Steph Curry went nuts in the second half. You know, we were up 17 in the second half. Carolina was playing in the next game, and Steph Curry got going. And they chipped away at the lead. He kept making threes. Jason Richards was amazing. And next thing you know, the Carolina fans who were waiting for the next game, they're banding up against the Georgetown crew that was there. And it was rocking. And it was the most stunning, sickening turn of events ever as a coach when you blow a huge lead with a really good team with pros. DeJuan Summers was on that team too, and with some vets. But, you know, sometimes it's in God's hands and you can't control it. And Steph has proven since that day, obviously, and he proved along the way how special of a player he was. And so that was the first 2 years. It was great synergy with the team, great leadership. And we all know as coaches, when your staff has a group that really works together and that really values the process, you know, it's a really fun ride. That third year we went younger, and Greg Monroe was a freshman. We went to the NIT, had an up and down year. I mean, we were ranked in the top 10. We were 13-0, I believe, at one point. We beat Tyreek Evans in Memphis. It was just one of those great starts, but then the synergy and things got a little tougher for our group. The selfishness came out, and, you know, we ended up going to the NIT that year. But when I think about that year personally, I don't even think about basketball as much. It's kind of blacked out to me because that was the year my 25-year-old sister got diagnosed with plasma cell leukemia. And plasma cell leukemia is a rare blood cancer that affects older men in their 70s. And my sister, who was 25, who was a roommate, we were living together. She was going to GW for graduate school. You know, she got sick. And when I think about that 2008, 2009 season, I think about Coach Thompson III letting me work half days. You know, I would get in early. I missed a lot of practices to drive up to University of Maryland, Baltimore to visit her because she was spending so much time in the hospital. And quite frankly, it was as traumatic of an experience for our family as you can ever imagine. Just the ups and downs of having a sibling battling cancer and managing that with obviously a high pressure job in coaching. But, you know, I think back to that season, John Thompson III, and what he did to help support my family was incredible. And he's a great man. During that season, my sister passed away, February 2009. And I will never forget at St. Francis Episcopal Church in Potomac, Maryland. It was a packed church. There was actually extra seating in other areas of the church that people came to just listen to. The doors open, and the entire Georgetown basketball family was there, including Coach Thompson III's father, the Hall of Famer John Thompson Jr. And so that puts life in perspective. And that's why I have so much love for the Thompson family in Georgetown, because that's some real life stuff. And to have that support during a tough time for your family and your sister's going through it all, to have them have my back is something that is unforgettable. And honestly, the games from that year, I kind of have to get reminded of, DeJuan Summers, who I do, we'll talk about this a little later, but I do some video work for him. He plays overseas now. But he brought that up this year, and that was over 10 years ago. So I think about those Georgetown times with great fondness, and obviously a lot of tough times. But again, when you're running a program, and I think all of us are going through a tough time collectively as a society today, when your coaching staff and your peers have your back, you think you can get through everything. Obviously, you need your family, you need your loved ones, but as a staff, when you're a coach and you're with people every single day and you're going through some real life drama and tragedy, it's so important to have your guys back. And obviously, when it's your student athlete who's going through a lot, you really need to have their back too, because they're young people away from home. And so just back to the basketball side of things, I got through that season, and it was tough. And one of my former coworkers at Princeton, Sidney Johnson, who I worked with, after that Final Four year, Kevin Brodus got the Binghamton job. Sidney Johnson got the Princeton job. Sidney called me in that offseason. He had an opportunity to move up the staff to the director of ops position. And that was an opportunity which I was excited for. Princeton, very high academic, great basketball history. And now you're going from a situation where you're working for a head coach whose father is a Hall of Famer, John Thompson Jr., and now you're working for Sidney Johnson, and Pete Carrill, another Hall of Famer, is still living in the area, and the longtime Princeton coach is there. So I kind of had that incredible start to my career in terms of just where you landed, being able to be at Georgetown and Sydney, getting his opportunity at his alma mater, and then working for him and having Pete Carrill around so much was really an opportunity for me to be a young coach and be a sponge. And, when you work in the Ivy League, and Adam Hood is, I think, still on here, but, the Ivy League's just, it's such a different basketball experience. Okay. These are guys who are, they're so much smarter than you, right? They're so much more intellectually savvy and forward thinking, and they have their minds on great things. And yeah, there's Adam, he's on there. It's such a pleasure to work with, because you don't deal with a lot of stuff that you deal with at other schools. I mean, the guys are so motivated for the most part. You deal with some certain things with affluence and sometimes selfishness or some spoiled nature of things. But for the most part, when you show up to work every day, it's really fun. And again, sometimes you need some luck. Sidney, his first 2 years was a struggle. He hired me on the tail end of that. And that first year as the ops, we went to the CBI. We won 22 games, finished second in the Ivy League. And that was a great experience. And, it's funny, you think about it, the story always comes to mind. At Princeton, we played in the CBI. And so I can't remember the order of the games, but we flew to IUPUI. We won a game at IUPUI in the CBI. And I think some of you guys know, if you've coached in the CBI, CIT, you can win a game, and you honestly, at the end of the game, you don't know where you're going and you don't know when you're going. So we landed in Indianapolis. We played a game the next day, and we kind of chilled that night. And we hung out at the restaurant. And then late that night, St. Louis had won a game. So we had to make travel plans to drive to St. Louis and play a game. And they eventually lost to St. Louis. Coach Majerus had a really good team that year. But, it's kind of one of those things when you're not at the high major level, man, things are a grind. You're doing a lot of bus trips. You're doing a lot of meals to go. You're still trying to, in an academic setting, trying to get your guys through school, especially in that spring. They're in the middle of their semester. So that experience was great. In that off season, the third assistant spot in the Ivy League was a volunteer spot. And the guy who on our staff, Scott Greenman, left. He went to Georgetown. And I got what I would call the best, worst promotion ever, because you go from a full-time op spot. And no, Tommy was at American, but Tommy's been in the world too. He knows, go from a full-time op spot and you get promoted to a volunteer assistant spot. And I thought I was going to get $10,000 of camp money. I ended up getting, I think, $3,500. I might call Sid and ask for a couple of those bucks back. Got a 4-year-old now, but so it was a great opportunity. I was young. I got opportunity to go on the road, and that's the beauty of the Ivy League. I think the Ivy League provides opportunities for young coaches to grow, hopefully get promoted, but you also have to sacrifice. And sacrifice is a big part of this job we're in. It's a big part of the profession. You have to sacrifice a lot of times. So going to the Ivy League, third assistant, recruiting a ton. And now I recruited a ton because I love recruiting. I love getting to know people, but I also wanted the per diem too. Okay. I needed that meal money on the road because you don't have a lot of money during a season. You got to stretch things as much as you can. So that's just life. I was, coach, I'm going to go to Florida this week, probably about 6 days. I don't know. That's what we talked about though. I mean, that's how you have to survive when you're in a situation, whether it's D1, barely paid, or D2, D3, junior college, Brock talked about. There's a lot of sacrifice. And one thing, just to get speaking now about the culture of basketball, one thing I hope we can get away from is where we just make our lowest paid guy figure it out on his own. And what I mean by that is, like, think of Coach Thompson III. When I was a GA, Marty, come here, take $100, go get lunch, keep the change. Coach, you gave me 100. It's cool. But you know what? I'll remember that the rest of my life. Now, I'm not saying just give out $100 handshakes all the time to your guys, but I'm not saying that's a bad thing either. But I remember Coach Thompson taking care of my lunch that one day, my entire career. I will never forget that. And so, I really want this next wave of coaches, man. We gotta weed out the selfishness. We gotta weed out the thinking of ourselves all the time, because I think it's really important, because we're going through some stuff right now as a society where, as coaches, we evolve and change too. And we understand that the world is different now. It's not the 80s. It's not the 90s. It's a different world. We have to respect and treat people differently. And I'm big on that. And that's something that, how you treat other people, I think ultimately defines you. And I've been that way for years. And I think as head coaches, we have to set the tone. So back to my story here. At Princeton, Sydney got offered the job at Fairfield after our NCAA tournament year. And that tournament year, when I was an assistant, 25 wins, second all time in Princeton history, with a senior-laden team, which, like sometimes the light just turns on for certain kids in certain settings. I think of Kareem Maddox, who for his first 3 years as a 6'7" athlete was a okay player who went through spells where he looked great, and sometimes you didn't know where he was. His senior year, he turned out to be Ivy League Defensive Player of the Year and second team All-Ivy. Now, God may have had a role in that. His work ethic may have had a role in that. There's a lot of factors that go into it, but a lot of times these guys, if you quit on them, they never get to the point where the light switch goes on. And, I always think of Kareem Maddox because his light switch went on late in his career. And this was a really smart gentleman. I mean, he played pro a couple of years. He's on the USA National 3-on-3 team now. But he also worked for NPR after college, and he had great grades. And he's a West Coast kid who came out to Princeton, and the school loved him, and he's well known. He wrote for the newspaper. So it's just one of those variables with young men where if you don't give up on them, I think you're going to be satisfied more times than not. Now, the problem is I feel like coaching has evolved to, we've gotten out of the person and player development world, and we're in the now world. And there's a lot of factors for that, right? We know people are hired to get fired. We understand that a lot of guys want to win right now, and that's athletic directors or people in the athletic department or boosters. And so how do you maintain that personal and professional development for your guys? I think is vital now more than ever, because our guys need us now more than ever, as we are seeing. And it's an important time for us to be there for them and to help them grow and to help them develop their voice and help them develop their personality and their games. So it's so multi-layered to me in terms of the personal development of these guys. So excuse me for a second. So Sydney took the job at Fairfield after that great season. We beat Harvard at the buzzer in the Ivy League tournament, lost to Kentucky at the first round. And we had an interesting season that year. Probably midway through the season, we decided to start forcing a lot of teams to their weak hands, no matter where they were on the court. And we would not guard guys who could not shoot over 30% from three. And when I mean we cannot guard guys, I mean Rajon Rondo. If you don't have 1 foot in the paint on that offensive player when he doesn't have the ball, or when he has the ball, you're coming out. And somehow it clicked. I mean, we had a really smart team. It worked really well. We had a great run. We go to the tournament. we forced Brandon Knight left the whole game, and he's struggling. But that last play of the game, he jabbed Kareem Maddox left, ripped it right, hit a runner for the game-winning shot. And it wasn't our day. We lost at the buzzer to Kentucky. But that year was fun because we had really smart guys, really intelligent guys. They loved the scouting reports. They just ate it up, and they took pride in just watching guys try to dribble with their weak hands. And sometimes weak hand basketball defenses, you may send him to he might be a right-handed guy, but if you send him to his left, he's better because that's how he likes to drive or that's how he likes to pull up. So what we really did was there's really a little bit before synergy, obviously, so you can see the data and the analytics, but we watched a ton of film and just said we would document what happens every time this player goes to this hand, what happens every time he goes to this hand. And we kind of used that in our scouting reports, and it was really fun. And obviously we had a smart team that could really implement it and got really excited about it. So Sydney took the job at Fairfield after that year, very soon after the season. Fairfield, Ed Cooley was did a tremendous job. Fairfield was returning a great core of players. Rakim Sanders, transfer from BC. Derek Needham, who would turn out to be one of the top 5 scorers in school history. Colin Nickerson, Desmond Wade, who transferred in from Houston. Mo Barrow, who turned out to be MAC 6th Man of the Year, I think 2 times. So Sid took the job at Fairfield, and it's a different experience. And when you're an assistant, you have an option. You can not go with your coach, or you can. Luckily for me, Sydney offered me a job on his staff. Unfortunately, it wasn't on the road. It was an ops position, but the man who I couldn't get on the road for, Tyson Wheeler, was staying behind. And Tyson has turned out to be one of my best friends in the profession. He worked for Ed. He stayed on as assistant for Sid. We hired Brian Nash, who runs IMG now, IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. And Tony Newsom from Princeton came with us. And, we had a good run. We lost in the championship game 46-42. So almost as bad as that game we heard about earlier tonight. I think Serge was talking. Serge knows, listen, in the MAC, there's a lot of games in the 30s and 40s. I mean, we lost the game on national TV to Manhattan. I think it was 36-33. So Serge is talking about 38 points. Well, hold on a second. I've only scored 33 in a game. And I think, Serge, if correct me if I'm wrong, when you were at St. Peter's, that last game of the year where we lost, I think you held us to 31, or maybe, I hope it wasn't 29. I can't really remember now. But in the MAC, it is a defensive league, man. Let me tell you. And I don't know if it's great defense or dudes can't shoot for the most part, but my goodness, like, you need to be tough in that league. That first couple of years at Fairfield, we had some really tough teams. And we had really good leadership. But Fairfield was different than Princeton. Like Princeton, I think, as a university and their history with basketball is pretty solidified. They had a great history. They had a Hall of Fame coach. They had some very successful players, obviously Bill Bradley. Fairfield's a younger university, a Jesuit school north of New York City, in a really, really tough league. And when you're in the MAC, there's a lot of good talent, especially regional, okay, that plays in that league. There's a lot of good New York City kids, Philly kids, DC area kids come on up, New England prep field. It's a very competitive, defensive-minded, physical league. So then after those great first 2 years, I mean, we set the record for most wins for first 2 years for staff at Fairfield. We had 2 really bad years, and we went young, and those young players down the line eventually developed into a good core that had 3 straight winning seasons. But you notice in that league, it was at a time where, I think some of you guys can remember this, the transfer portal 10 years ago didn't exist, okay? But there were teams early in the transfer market like Iona, Manhattan. These teams were really savvy, and they were really good at getting guys to transfer in, getting them eligible. Iona has been terrific under Tim Kluse, and I know Tim has gone through some health issues, and we're always thinking of him and wishing him the best because Tim Kluse is a genius. I mean, offensively, the stuff they would do and the stuff they were successful at doing with his staff, with Jared Grasso, Zach Lovera, was just honestly incredible. So we went through some 2 tough seasons at Fairfield, and there was a point after the end of that second bad year where, the staff had to change. And unfortunately, I wasn't part of the future. So it sucked, but it's part of the profession. Now, the situation behind that, we can't even get into. But the two guys who were hired to replace Tony Newsom and I were close with the AD. That's part of the game. That's part of the game. And like Kevin Brodus used to tell me, and he told me that day I was let go, don't be bitter, be better. Don't be bitter, be better. Okay? Because I love those kids at Fairfield, because those young kids that were left behind on that team eventually had 3 straight winning seasons. And I wish I could be there with them, but I just couldn't. It wasn't in the deck of cards. So I'm living in Stamford, Connecticut. I'm walking my wife's dog 3 times a day. I'm lounging, working the phones. My wife gets a job offer in LA. Oof, LA. I don't know anything about LA. I went to Nashville for college, which was far away. And LA, I didn't know much about. Lo and behold, my boy, Chris Capco, who I met at Orlando Christian Prep when he was at Stetson in 2009, so like 6 years prior. Chris Capco is leaving USC. He's going to FIU. I call Chris. Chris, I'm moving out west. Your job is open. I believe it's a direct, yep, your guy Capco, Robert, no doubt. Your job is opening. Can you throw me a bone? Okay, Andy Enfield's the head coach. Cap says, sure, let's just see what happens. So Chris really helped me out, got me in the door with Andy. And you guys know Andy. Andy was at FGCU. He was kind of this new mind in the basketball game, got FGCU hot, really hot. Won 2 games in the tournament, takes the USC job. Capco really helped me get in front of Andy early once Chris knew he was leaving. And I interviewed out there with Andy about in May of 2015. And luckily for me, I just feel like I was the right person at the right time with the right experience for what Andy needed. And Andy was a great offensive mind. Their first 2 years at USC, they really struggled. But, you know, they had some good young talent. They had some guys that had gone through some growing pains. So again, you're kind of riding the wave. I know I'm in San Diego and it's surfer country, but we're riding the wave here. And Chris Capco got me in front of Andy early on before the job went live. Andy and I had a great discussion. And it was a moment where I had to put my ego aside. I was going off the road for his director of scouting spot, but I was so excited. My wife got a great design job out here. I didn't know anything about LA, but if I didn't have this job with USC, I was hoping to be a rebounder for the LA Defenders at the time. You know, I was talking to the Defenders coach, but luckily it worked out. So, you know, don't be bitter, be better. We're going to go through some ups and downs in coaching. It happens to all of us. And I think I really relied on guys who had my back and supported me during those tough times. And there were some more tough times ahead. So we were at USC, had a great first year there. 2015-16, we won 21 games, made it back to the tournament, first time since 2009. That following year, we won 2 games in the NCAA tournament, led by Jordan McLaughlin, who's with the Timberwolves now. Chimezi Metu plays for the Spurs. DeAnthony Melton, who starts a lot, started a lot in Phoenix, plays a lot for Memphis now. Benny Boatwright, who's in the G League. Elijah Stewart, who was in the G League too. So really had a great team that really gelled, and we played a fun style. I mean, Andy's ball screen system, I highly recommend for coaches to sit down, study it. It's a great style of play, especially with athleticism in your front court and shooting. Now, we had an elite point guard, Jordan McLaughlin, who we all thought was an NBA player, but he had to grind it out to get to the NBA. That meant a whole year in the G League, a 2-way with Minnesota this year, needing someone to get hurt to get the opportunity to be called up in Minnesota this year. And he averaged 7 and 4 this year for Minnesota, and they'll probably bring him back for a multi-year deal, I'm assuming, after this sophomore year for him with the Timberwolves. So we had a great team. We won 2 games in the NCAA tournament. And we lost to a great Baylor team in I guess it was the second round because we were in the playing game. And had a great core of guys who liked that Georgetown team, just had fun, had good attitudes, really enjoyed playing together. And like we all know, those teams are the best to coach. You know, those are the guys who make coming to work every day really fun, really enjoyable. After that, though, a lot of stuff happened. So we had an FBI investigation. Twice. Now, the first one we know. I think you guys have seen the documentary. I haven't watched it. I don't plan on watching it. I lived through a lot of that crap. I have strong feelings on that, which I probably won't voice today. If any of you are wearing a wire, you better take it off. But in all honesty, like that whole situation with Tony Bland hurts me to this day. Tony Bland is one of the realest, most authentic, good dudes ever. I have no problem saying that. And we had to navigate that situation. And in that situation, you're worried about, number one, Tony Bland and his family. Number two, your guys. What's going on? You know, and so you have to help our guys get through that because Tony recruited a lot of those guys. And they're really, everyone's scared. Everyone doesn't know what's going on. And it's a real life thing again, which different than my sister's passing, but it was a traumatic time for a lot of people. And then again, like, so I said the Princeton promotion was the worst. This promotion to assistant coach is actually the worst now that I think about it, because I had so much fun going to work with Tony Bland every day. And so we had to get through a season with the fallout of that scandal. And that's some real life stuff, man. Like our guys love Tony. There was some stuff said that wasn't true in the media. There was some stuff that our guys had to hear from other people. They had to worry about their own eligibility. D'Anthony Melton, unfortunately, didn't get to play that whole year. And so going through that really, I feel like builds character for everybody. And when I think about character, I think about that staff. Chris Kapko would come back. He was an assistant at USC. Mike Sweats was the ops. Jason Hart, who I haven't spoken of yet, who's as dear of a friend as I can have, one of the smartest basketball minds I know, one of the realest, most authentic, genuine people I could ever have met. Him as associate head coach, and then working with Andy, all of us working together to get through it. And getting through it, you know, I think starts with something which I preach is, you know, if I'm going to ever hire a staff, I want to hire eternal optimists, okay? Because whether you win or lose, you want to be with people who are going to bring that spirit every day. Because when you go through real life stuff, like that FBI case, man, like you want to have real, authentic people around you to help you through it. And you want to help them through it. You want to help your guys through it. And that team had a great year. I mean, the crazy thing for that year is we won 24 games. We finished second in the Pac-12 for the first time since '92. We lost in the Pac-12 championship game to Arizona, that DeAndre Ayton team, which was phenomenal. And then unfortunately, you know, we got snubbed from the tournament, and we thought we had a tournament resume, but sometimes life's out of your control, and our guys were devastated. And I tell you what, I wasn't feeling good the day of the whatchamacallit, the NCAA tournament viewing. That feeling when you don't make the tournament and you know you're good enough and you don't know why is hard. And we had guys crying, and you think about that entire year, 2017-18, man. Like that entire year was so many different emotions, so many ups and downs. You cannot break the bond that group of men had, though. And that experience, which we all have painful regrets from and sadness from, you know, that group of guys really stuck together. And I don't think there can be anything that breaks that bond between players, staff and players. And then obviously our love for Tony, and obviously his life's gotten back together, and we love him so much. So now things get crazy. Let's get back. That's real life stuff, professional stuff. I got demoted after being promoted. Okay. And like, that's another piece of the puzzle here, guys. Like Andy hired Eric Mobley, who, you know, like when I didn't get to go on the road at Fairfield, when Sydney went to Fairfield from Princeton with Tyson, Eric Mobley's one of the best dudes ever. Like for real. Eric Mobley has 2 sons who were NBA prospects. Andy decided to hire him. And Eric couldn't be more of a gentleman, more of a great basketball mind, more of a great mentor and father. And it affected me detrimentally professionally, but I made a great friend and coworker and someone who is a Renaissance man. Eric Mobley boogie boards, he surfs, he bikes. He used to have his bicycle, doing stuff with those gears. I don't know what bicyclists and those type of people do, but he's a great guy and a Renaissance man, and I wish him and his family the most success because they're going to have some great moments here this year at USC and then in the NBA soon. Went through a tough year that last year at USC, 2018-19. Kevin Porter Jr. was on our team. He eventually was drafted, but we had a team that was young, immature, and just didn't gel. And those teams are tough because you try everything you can possibly do to get a team to mesh, to get a team to believe, to get a team to rally. And sometimes it just doesn't click. Sometimes guys just can't figure out how to play with each other. We had a ton of injuries early too. There were practices where we only had 5 guys. And I'm a firm believer, you know, if you miss a lot of collective time in the fall, your synergy is going to be affected. Now, you can make up for it. I don't think our team was strong enough in 2018 and 19 to make up for it. And because of that, we had a tough year. But Kevin Porter's doing great in the NBA. He's matured a lot. The guys in Cleveland love him. We all love him. And I'm just really happy he's in a situation with a good young talent that helps him grow and be a great player. So at the beginning of this year, I was at USC. I was at USC this season until December. I interviewed for a job at San Diego for one of their assistant spots in September with Coach Sam Scholl. Sam and I had a mutual connection, went through the interview process with him, drove down to San Diego, didn't get the job. So, okay, heading back to USC, get through this season. We have a great team, Isaiah Mobley, Onyeka Okongwu, Nick Rakocevic, Jonah Matthews as seniors. USC team, which went on to win 22 games this year. Didn't get the job at San Diego. We're at the Orlando Classic in November, and I get a couple calls from friends who tell me that, you know, people at San Diego have been calling around about me. I'm kind of like, what's going on? Oh, my man Terrence Rencher left in November to go to Creighton. So Terrence Rencher's spot opened up on staff in November. Totally off my radar, wasn't even thinking about it. Sam calls me a week after the Old Spice or Orlando Invitational and offers me a job. And, you know, moving jobs in the middle of a season, I mean, that's something crazy. And like, luckily it's regional, right? It was only 2 hours away, but, you know, what's Andy going to think? Is he going to be cool with it? How does it look perception wise? It's kind of one of those professional conundrums that I don't think a lot of people have dealt with. And obviously it was a very strange situation, but Andy knew it was a great opportunity. The WCC is a great league. Sam runs Princeton Concepts, and my background with the Princeton offense from Princeton, Georgetown, and even Vanderbilt and Fairfield, it really clicked. We had good synergy when we met again, when we talked on the phone. And in December of this year, I left USC a week after our win over TCU, headed on down to San Diego, lived on campus in an old Jesuit quarters for about 2 months. And my wife moved down in February, went through the season. I actually was anxious that my wife would move down in February, but lo and behold, COVID hits. Luckily, she's down here with my young daughter, Lila, who's 4. And we're here together in San Diego now. And Sam's a great guy. I work with a coach who I respect, Jerry Brown, as an assistant. David Carter was an assistant with us this year. He went on up to LMU with Stan Johnson on that staff. David is a Los Angeles guy. So that's my journey to today. A lot of ups and downs. I hope you guys can see I've been very open and I have no regrets about that. I mean, I think what we have to understand now in the world we live in, like, we have to be a support system for each other as coaches, as mentors, and we have to have each other's backs. And you can't fully support someone if they don't fully open themselves up to you. And that's a lot of things a lot of men and young men have problems with. You know, they don't want to let go of their insecurities. And that's what we have to help do with this next generation. And I think as coaches, we have to treat each other better. I think as coaches, we have to build up our own staffs better, their confidence, their excitement to come to work every day, their energy, their spirit. And then with our guys, we have to be there for them and support them. But the biggest thing for me is it's a long, crazy journey, and there's a lot of days ahead. Jason Hart and I used to always say this quote: if you can't laugh, you can't live. And we have to enjoy this thing. We have to enjoy this thing. We're in a stressful profession. We're in a profession where you can lose your job winning and you can lose your job losing. You can lose your job if something out of your control. You can lose your job for something completely in your control. Let's have fun with it. I want to have a good time every single day. We're going to build off this tough season at San Diego. We have 6 new transfers coming in. We were excited to recruit. We got older. We feel like we got a lot better. And no matter what, we have to enjoy every single day through the good times and bad, because life is too short. And I think you've heard of my life struggles today. And I know you guys have gone through some stuff too in your own personal lives. And you got to lean on the people you love and the people you trust most when you're going through the tough times in life. So hope I didn't talk too long. The human experience is really important to me. So sharing these stories is a part of my coaching experience. And I'm really glad that you guys will sit here and listen, all 37 of you guys here right now. And thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it, Martin.
Thank you.
We got any questions?
Coach, I have a question for you.
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing, Cody Cohen?
Cody, what's up, man?
Nice to meet you. I wanted to ask you, what did you do to prepare yourself to be an assistant when you were in support staff roles, working your way up before you got your first shot on the road?
Yeah, sure. My first job on the road, just to reiterate, was at Princeton in 2010. I was 26. That prior year, I really, social media wasn't huge yet. I don't think I had a Twitter and stuff then. So networking was a little different. I really wanted to build our team camp. That's kind of what I focused on. So I wanted to get to know coaches, AAU coaches, high school coaches, JV, everybody. So I sent a ton of emails, made a ton of calls, tons of texts that year to just meet people. Now, I feel like I got off to a good start networking in college, though. I feel like in college, I met a lot of guys. I think about this group, which I hope I'm invited to come back and listen, because I look at the names on this group, a lot of guys who I really like and respect and have kind of known over the years. And, move to the West Coast, you kind of lose touch sometimes with people. But I think it's really cool that, when I was at Vanderbilt, I vividly remember, and it's funny, it was mostly Southern coaches, but I was on this mail exchange, and we would basically once a month, somebody would mail 30 to 40 people a play or some notes from a clinic. And it was really organic and cool. And a lot of the guys were actually from the Florida coaching tree. I don't know if Brock's aware of that or not. I know he was at Alabama, but I somehow got connected with these guys who I met through camps, and I was exchanging information, and some of these guys eventually moved up in the profession. And they're really just good guys who I still talk to, some of them today. So, as a non-coaching role though, networking with the high school coaches, the AAU coaches, getting their game schedules, finding out who their young prospects are, you're allowed to do all those things. And I think it's really important that you get out there, you develop a recruiting voice, but just make sure it's authentic. Just be yourself. Don't try to be someone you're not. I think authenticity needs to be cherished by all of us. And part of me is just, hey, just reach out, be cordial. You may not get a response sometimes. You may meet someone who has a positive impact on your life moving forward. Great
Awesome.
question, man. Thank you.
Hey, Marvin, what's up, man? Hey.
What's up? I don't see anybody. Hey, B, what's up?
What's up, man? Great job, man.
Hey, thank you.
Sorry to hear about your sister, but that was unbelievable. Everybody coming to support you like that, man. You're right. Those are life things that are uncomparable to anything else, man. That's amazing.
Well, let me add something to that story. Now I'm just realizing. So when the team came, and one of the former players, Tyler Crawford, was sitting front row. The doors open in the back, and you just hear this gasp from the crowd. Big John Thompson came in. And when I tell you Tyler got up and moved people out of the front row of the church to make room for Big John Thompson, that legitimately happened. So, yeah, I mean, that's something that just stands out, and I think about it every day, honestly. But we've raised $250,000 in my sister's name for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society since then. So, you try to turn life's tragedies and trials and tribulations into a positive anytime you can.
Yeah, no, you can hear it when you speak. And you kind of mentioned something earlier, that internal optimism. Man, I really like that, man. Can you kind of go a little deeper into that and talk about your definition of it?
Yeah, so for me, eternal, energetic, and honest optimism. We're in a high-stress job. Now, are we doctors? No. Okay, but we know we can get fired. At the end of every year, we all know we can get fired. That's stress. Right. Wins and losses matter. So you lose a game you're not supposed to, you're stressed. I remember during that my first couple of years coaching, we had only won. And I get to Fairfield in our third year at Fairfield, we won 7 games, and I'm having chest pains. And I was like freaking, like, I think I was like 28 years old, 29 years old. And I was like, dude, this is stress. This is tightening me up.
Yeah.
So, but no, eternal energetic and honest optimism. Like, just bring your good spirit to work every single day. Like, I think we really have to pick each other up. But I also think, like, if it's raining, it can start pouring if you don't get your stuff together and unite, and just to see the beauty in each day. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we know in college basketball, listen, we show up, and I'm not talking to you saying, listen, but like, these kids, you never know when they're going to show up. You can coach them, go through every single scout. The first play of the game, they don't swing step, you know? And so, like, you don't know what's going on with these kids. So if you lose a game, that has no effect on the next game. And it sounds cliche, but man, why bring a bad attitude after a loss? Let's refocus. Let's keep our spirit. Let's keep working, and definitely don't stop laughing. And I feel like my experience has been pretty, like, obviously losing a sibling is traumatic, but then also, like I said, 2 FBI cases, because we dealt with the admissions thing too, which had nothing to do with us, but we were just, you know, you're kind of like associated with that because you're at USC, and like all of us don't even know what's going on. So
Right.
yeah, you know, and it's like, so when you go through real life stuff, it kind of puts everything in perspective, and I try to embrace that.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of taking that a step further, even you talk about the main thing, which is wins and losses, but do you also use that kind of same energy when you recruit or something you trying to get done beyond just wins and losses?
Yeah, I want the guys I recruit, I want them to envision the best version of themselves, and sometimes that doesn't even include basketball. But I think, like, when you're really wanting to develop a relationship with someone, you want to help build them up too. You know, we talk a lot about, we say this phrase a lot, gas me up, gas me up. Sometimes I come to the office, ask Jerry Brown, gas me up, baby. How we feeling today? But like, pumping someone up should be something we all do for other people, because like, we don't know the confidence issues other people have. And people we work with, we don't know their confidence issues. So let's help, let's help everyone. Let's assume everyone needs a pat on the back all the time. Let's create an atmosphere in the office where guys are having each other's backs, because, like, you've probably heard some horror stories or experienced horror stories with guys who are not in sync with their coworkers, and it doesn't make for a fun experience, even if you're winning. And so how can we encourage others to let go of their insecurities and to enjoy each day? Carpe diem, as they say, like, let's maximize each day with a lot of eternal, honest, and energetic optimism. How can today be awesome? And so in recruiting, like, I tell guys, like, who I think, regardless of what their level is recruiting wise, I've told certain guys who are mid-major grades that I think they can play in the NBA. And I don't feel like I'm lying, because I feel like if they believe that, and they have a work ethic, and then you don't know what God's thinking. You never know. DeAnthony Melton at USC was like a top 150 kid. He wasn't a top 50 kid, and he was 2 and done. And DeAnthony came out of high school as a 6'4" guard who played the center position on the Crespi high school team, but was like this guard who could do everything, could defend, could dribble, could make a shot, could rebound at an elite level, could get steals and blocks at an elite level. And, God didn't rank him 150, but he kept working, he clicked in college, and it worked out. So, I think keeping your positive spirit is a great mindset to have.
Absolutely, man. I love it. Appreciate you, man. Did a great job.
Appreciate you.
Martin, Ivy League brother. How you doing?
Hey, look at that baby. I remember you when you were young and
got me on
single.
daddy duties. I had to have my camera off. He was acting a fool. Nice.
Oh, look at that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Are those dribbling gloves? What are those?
Oh, just trying to keep his hands out of his mouth. It's like turnover gloves.
Yeah, exactly.
Turned the ball over like I did in college. But no, I'm just, again, obviously great presentation about yourself and way to explain that. I think you laid it out great, and the highs, the lows, and staying positive and optimistic. That stuff's all great. I just want to speak on, just lately, you guys have kind of taken San Diego, the high major transfer route. Yeah. Can you kind of speak on that and kind of y'all's philosophy?
Sure.
Going to that now, before, I guess, the wave of that, before this, big change, eligible immediately. I know you guys have done that. I just want to hear you know, just speaking about that and you guys' kind of philosophy and what advantages or disadvantages you see taking this route. And then the last one extra question: when you become a head coach, what route would you take, seeing both these kind of avenues?
Yeah. So non-high majors are in a tough predicament, in my opinion, right now, because if you have a kid who does well in his first year or two, he's more than likely going to transfer up now. So, excuse me, how can you attack that as an assistant coach? How can you attack that as a program who's not high major? I think number one, you have to develop relationships with guys you know you can't get coming out of high school. And I think that's really important because you have to assume, given the high transfer rate, that guys are going to leave. And that's just, you might feel like you're swinging for the fences. I called for some reason, right? I called a top 10 class of 2022 whose father I really like, who's a good dude, who likes me. We have no chance of getting him. And he's not going to be a transfer. He's going to be in the NBA. But I think you have to have that mindset that, like, the transfer market's crazy. And think about it from a prospect's perspective. I go to a school, high major. It may or may not work out. I may have a grad transfer recruited over me in year 2. So my development is now stunted. I can't play as much. So from our perspective, can we attack that differently? And we were able to get a couple high major transfers this year early in their careers. Then we also got a couple grad transfers who have had good experience, but also had previously played at the high major level. And I think that's important because this group needed to get older. We had to get older. We had to get more athletic. We had to get some shooting. We need a little bit of everything. We won 9 games, right? But you get the point. Like, we had to get better. We had to get older. Like, I feel like if you get older, you recruit the right older. I think you have to recruit the right older in some instances. Mm-hmm. We focused on that. And I think mid-majors really have to focus on how they attack this transfer portal. Now, obviously, this year was weird because we couldn't go out and recruit, the qualified JUCOs in July or the unsigned kids in April and July. So we had to get older and we had to make the most of this transfer portal. And we got 6 transfers, 5 with high major experience, and then another kid who's, I would say probably was a low major transfer who averaged 12 and shot 43% from 3. And, what we have to hope now is that we have a couple compelling cases for waivers for a couple of these guys. Yeah. And then you can really have everyone on board right from the get-go.
Yeah. No,
and so
what would you do speaking of that, would you kind of take this, and you always spoke about development a little bit, but development, transfer rate, old, young, you know what I mean? Like process, you know what I mean? Microwave.
No doubt. It's going to be interesting because it's crazy, but like, maybe there's more value in unsigned seniors now since everyone's taking transfers, right? So like, you have to think about that as a coach. You have to have great evals. You have to have thorough evals. I think for me, it's really important that you have balance. And I think you have to keep scholarships in the spring, whereas in the past, you probably tried to sign 4 freshmen. It's just hard to navigate now, I think, because you know you're going to lose good young players. You have to be at one with that as a coach at the non-high major level. Assume you're going to lose a kid. Even if you love him, he loves you, and you trust him, he may just want to have a higher level run. Now, I think we're in a good league. I think Gonzaga, BYU, and St. Mary's are high major caliber programs. And everyone else is just like really good, but we have to deal with like 3 high major programs. So, it's like, I think you have to have that balance. You have to find some diamonds in the rough young. And then you also have to continue to recruit young guys, because if those guys transfer, you still want to have balance in your program and on your roster. And that's just my opinion. But I'm all for keeping 1 or 2 late for sure because of that portal, and to expect transfers anyway. It's really strange. I mean, you're checking the portal every day,
Yeah,
I mean, like,
right? It's part of your day for sure. You're like, oh, wait a minute.
Part of your day. I have my oatmeal.
Yeah.
I get my daughter set up with her little TV show at breakfast, and I check the portal.
Yeah, I agree with you. And people go in there, and it's like, it's a free for all. Like the people they hear from, and it's crazy. I agree with you. I check the portal every day too.
Yeah, no doubt.
And Twitter, but
yeah, I have to. Baby looks good, man.
I wish you get a little darker, but that's what happens with mixed babies, man. I get them out in the sun though when it's time.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
Is that it? I saw something about the Ivy League in here. I wanted to see when I was scrolling. I think it was Michael Bragg. A lot of people underestimate. Is Michael on here still? What's up, Justin?
What's up, Mark?
A lot of people underestimate the Ivy League. Living in Princeton, living in New York, seeing schools like Princeton, Columbia, and Penn, tough battles. And Princeton, Columbia, and Penn always play top 50 schedules, which prepares them for Ivy. Guys, the Ivy League's really good now. I mean, and it's always been good, but the balance in the league in terms of competitive teams is so different than even when I was there 10 years ago. Seeing Justin on here now and how good they've done at Dartmouth, and Brian Earl, my coworker at Princeton's the head coach at Cornell, and they made the Ivy League tournament in his I think second year. You know, everyone could be good. Cornell went to the Sweet 16. Tommy Amaker is a coaching legend now. James Jones is a coaching legend now. Mitch Henderson. I mean, it's a great league. Steve Donahue, you know, coaching legends. So that Ivy League is good runs, and they're good kids. And I would highly advise, if you have a network that touches the Ivy League, to just stay in touch with those people, because there's a lot of head coaches who leave the league. But then it's also like, you should be excited to coach in that league. It's high level runs now. Good question, Michael. Oh, statement by Michael. Anyone else? It's late night out east, man. I know.
Yes, we pushing midnight on that East Coast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
Man, we appreciate it, Martin. Appreciate it, man. You came, highly recommend it.
Marlon, my man, Marlon.
I'm trying to see, Marlon, you still on?
Yeah, I'm here, man. I'm in my damn bed, though.
Hey, Marlon's tired. He's like doing a book tour and stuff now. I mean, I see Marlon everywhere.
Hey, man.
You got a documentary coming out?
Nah, man. I'm just happy to listen to you guys, man. Price, we're going to have to bring this down by an hour or something, man. Or we got to start head tapping people, something, man. But all in all, man, you know, love hearing from you three guys tonight, man. You know, like you touched on, Martin, like Brock touched on, and like on Brandon touched on, man. It's three different stories, but it all leads to the same thing, and that's all, you know, trying to help one another. And I think that's important, man. A lot of times that just gets lost in translation in this crazy game that we're in, man. But, you know, shout out to you three guys for telling your story and inspiring, because you'd be surprised. There are a lot of guys that have similar stories, but, you know, don't know that. And, you know, listening to you three guys talk tonight, I'm sure they were happy to hear that. And, you know, hopefully that allows them to push on in this crazy business, man, that we all do, you know?
No doubt. No doubt.
No doubt. Appreciate that, man.
With that, I'm out here in Jersey. I'm going to bed. All y'all Central guys, y'all West Coast guys, y'all can stay up and talk all night if y'all want. I'm going to bed, man.
All right, man. Good seeing you,
man. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Guys, I appreciate you guys coming on. Brandon, Brock, Martin, guys did a great job tonight. I think my Let's Grow chaplain is off the bed. Tommy, does anybody want to lead in prayer? Brandon, you want to lead in prayer?
I was gonna tell you to run it, big dog, Pastor.
Now we'll be in here probably another 20, 30 minutes if I do it.
I'll knock it out real quick. Bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for continuously waking up this morning. Thank you for the fellowship and everyone coming together for one cause. Please continue to bless us as we go through trials and tribulations every single day, but most importantly, keeping the good where the good is and leaving the bad where the bad is. So thank you for all your blessings in your name. Amen.
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 So Ryan, appreciate you again, man. Martin, Brock, man, good job, fellas.
Keep in touch, man.
Absolutely.
Marty Mar.
Who's that?
What's up, Marty Mar?
I can't see. There you are, my guy, unmasked. I didn't know you unmasked, baby. You look good. Damn, that's the Phantom of the Opera logo. Look at you.
No,
Look at
no,
it.
it's not. Don't.
That's
It's
good.
branded. It's branded. It's something new. It's not the Phantom of the Opera.
It's a full half mask. The Phantom of the Opera is only the eye, I think. Dude, you're doing it big, man.
Well, we got some stuff coming out. You'll get a gift too because you've been on the show. So
Okay.
you're gonna get a gift sent to you.
Okay. I don't take cash. I know I worked at USC. I don't take cash though. Oh, we're still recording?
Yeah, let me go ahead and I'm gonna edit that part. Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
You're gonna get a free unmasked t-shirt.